for smoking while driving. So you're really gonna we're not gonna go to jail for owning it. We're gonna go to jail for well, we're gonna go to jail for selling it. We're gonna go to jail for buying it. We're gonna go to get jail for using it, which still prevents us from having it. And then they made a dispensary that sells it, but we can't sell it. But we can't get a permit unless we grow it. We can't get the permit if we haven't been growing for 5 years, and we can't grow it for 5 years legally if we don't have the permit. So now we have to grow it for 5 years illegally, get a permit, and not have narcotics unit raid our property. And we say the same thing. It's unjust and unfair and unreasonable. But you know what? The thing about it is that fairness is universal. And that's something that people don't think about. Fairness is universal. If everybody else can't do what you do the way that you do it, then it's not fair. So just because you found a hole, a loophole, and you're exploiting that loophole, doesn't change the fact that everyone else that knows about that loophole should be able to take advantage of it also. Now, here's an issue. If everyone else around the world that believes that what's happening to Ukraine is unfair, right? Unreasonable, right? Unjustified, right? And they did what Americans used to do to Target when they found out that Target made a racist comment. What everybody in America did to Calvin Klein when Calvin Klein made that racist comment is take their money away from a source that they don't agree with. That's the part that no news media talks about. Why the hell does Russia have a surplus of oils that they're underselling? Because they had a demand that stopped coming in. They still have a supply that is capable of going out, and India is the only person interested in buying it. So India can buy it at a reduced rate. That's where the core of the complaint actually comes from. Because if everybody else is trying to stop the war by saying, hey, if we stop giving Russia money, Russia will stop making explosives and Ukraine will stop being burned to the ground. By indirect effort, I can contribute to the ceasefire by not buying oil from Russia. Right? Now, India's like, fuck that, I'm gonna make some money. We broke. That's that's the biggest argument that we have here. So when they say that the decision made by the US is unfair, is it really? Because we do have to recognize that the United Nations is a gigantic room full of world leaders from every country around the world, every self-sufficient power around the world, even if it's not really recognized as a country, because we have more than 200 countries around the world, but we only count 200 of them because they can hold their own in a battle. Now, with all these people in the room discussing that peace needs to happen between Ukraine and Russia so that everybody can make money again, why the hell is one group like, nah, fuck that, let's make that money? I can't say that it's unfair. I can't say that it's unreasonable. I can say that, yeah, you did have a good business proposition at one point in time, but now it is time to stop. Almost like when you were trafficking drugs in the trunk of your car until the police pulled you over and pulled that uh, uh, large bag of unnecessary goods from the floorboard of your car. It's time to stop. Mama used to tell me that you know you're doing too much when you start getting in trouble for what you're doing. That's how you determine that you're doing too much when you start getting in trouble what you're doing. Now, notice, and I'm going to be talking about not just the United States. The United Nations has sanctioned India before this. So this is not the first time that India was not cooperative with the discussions amongst world leaders. Now, the statement provided by India emphasized that India's energy imports are based on market factors and are essential for the energy security for its 1.4 billion people. And if that's true, then you shouldn't be selling shit. You should buy everything at a depreciated value, possess a surplus of it, and don't give it to anybody. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Me and probably millions of other people would have no objections to the fact that you're suffering and you're buying everything on a discount so that you can stop suffering. I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh man, you're an asshole," because but when you start turning the profit up, you're not suffering anymore. Now, New Delhi also pointed to what it sees as hypocrisy, arguing that the US is selectively targeting India for actions that many other countries, including American allies in Europe, are also taking. Now, the statement concluded with a firm warning. Now, India will take all actions necessary, allegedly, to protect its national interests. Whew. The battle lies in the line in the sand that has just been drawn. It is no longer a negotiation, it is an economic punishment designed to force a change in India's foreign and economic policies. Now, a potential 50% tariff isn't just a tax, it's a wall. And I call it a potential because it hasn't gone into effect yet. Like I said, they've got about 16 more days left, which puts it really close to the 1st of September. And if no agreements have occurred and no changes have been made, then come the 1st of September, India is going to be paying 50% to sell at the United States, whereby making far less money or being forced to not even ship their products to the United States, where the United States is a majority profit for India, which would staggeringly cripple their supply chain and their profit margin. So for India's exports, the cost of sending their goods to their single largest market could, in many cases, become profitably expensive overnight. This is going to prevent them from turning a profit. Now, the consequences could be catastrophic down the line, creating a domino effect that could cripple key industries in India, which would lead to widespread job losses. So, as we talk about, because Donald Trump being a billionaire, he's not going to run out there and punch you in the face. He takes a and you guys can comment because this is a widely interactive podcast. So if you guys are on Twitter or Twitch or YouTube and y'all got something that y'all want to say, go ahead, throw it into the comment section. Try to keep it appropriate because we got some young bucks up in here that's coming to learn and listen. But if your comments are appropriate, they'll be put up on the top of the screen, right up underneath the stock options that's scrolling across the top of the screen. But Donald Trump follows a method that I was told when I was growing up is that you don't hit him in the face, you hit him in the wallet. People, every human being on the face of this earth has a price. And I mean, the $1 million man used to say that way back in the early 90s in WWF before it became the WWE, before it got bought out by TKO. And that old saying was everybody has a price. It just depends how much you have to pay. That philosophy is true. You cannot convince somebody to follow your lead. There are three ways that you can convince somebody. One way is through fear, and fear typically comes from oppressive violence, and that doesn't last long. That leads to uprisings and rebellions. The other way is through loyalty, And loyalty comes from you yourself taking a sacrificial loss that their integrity is indebted to. And then the other one is greed. That's the way that you can get people to cooperate is through greed. Because if they don't want to pay the ticket every time they get on the road, they're going to stop driving bad. If they don't want to lose their car, they're going to pay the note on time. If they don't want you to take their house, they're going to pay the taxes on the house. They're going to pay the note on the house. If India doesn't want to give all of their profits from selling goods to the United States to the United States, they're going to listen to the United States or stop selling to the United States, which would force them to redirect their product to another country that is not going to buy as much of their product as the wasteful spending of the American people. So let's look at the sectors on the front lines of catastrophic failure. First thing we're going to talk about is these textiles and apparels. The United States is a critical market for this industry, accounting for roughly 25 to 28% of India's total textile and garment exports, valued at nearly $10 billion in the last fiscal year. For manufacturing hubs like Tariff and Noida, American retailers are their lifeblood. With a potential tariff of 50%, Indian bed sheets, towels, and clothing are at a severe price disadvantage compared to competitors from nations like Bangladesh, which we just finished talking about on Wednesday of last week, and Vietnam, who I think we've covered a couple of months ago, which face lower tariff rates as of right now. And I love this. I love this because this piggybacks off of what we talked about last week. I love the topic. I don't love what's happening to India. I love the topic. I talked to you guys about investing in startup in India. I mean, in Bangladesh, not India, in Bangladesh. I talked to you about going out there, setting up shop, and then working on certain industries, including the textiles and I was telling you how right now in the current market, it would be satisfactory for you to start off by building something like a textile scenario, taking the profits off the textile scenario, and then go and invest in energy, or start off by investing in energy to increase the quantity of energy in a growing sector, and then build textile businesses in that area where you could take startups where ironically, that country is a lot like one of the other countries we've talked about recently that is driven by female workforce. So you can get small business owners, female business owners, and invest in their business and then build up their financial success. And lo and behold, India is being complicated. The United States is tariffing the bejesus out of India, which means all of your non-name brand products that are coming out of Bangladesh now has a massive promotion accidentally by the United States because they're not going to cost as much. Because you already know every business takes the tariffs and incorporates it into the price and rides it off on the customer. So with a 50% increase on the product, anything that once was $10 is now going to be at least $15, and anything that once was $50 is now going to be closer to $75 to offset the tariff increase that's going to happen in a few weeks. Now, if Bangladesh is still able to sell that exact same garment with exact same off-brand quality for $20 less, the average American will buy the cheaper non-name brand item, where the only household names that we grew up with was made in China and made in Taiwan. So made in Bangladesh and made in India are not really household names. Special shout out to Dirk, who screams Donald Duck in the comment section. I appreciate the Donald Duck because, and then what looks like Cookie Monster in there, because that could have been way more inappropriate. But I love me some Donald Duck and Ducktales. That was a very good cartoon growing up. But I do say that that's a good dive in. You can also shout out your country, your hometown, city, and state. Happy birthday to a family or friend, as long as it's appropriate. And let's not treat me like Mo from The Simpsons, where you're gonna try to use the uh, um, honorifics of a name to make it be pronounced as something extremely inappropriate, because that would make me very frustrated. Because as soon as I see that it spells something inappropriate, I'm gonna be like, I gotta do it. Because as of August 13th, which is like 2 days from now, YouTube is coming down harder on podcasters about negative exposure to the youth. And that means that we have to be on our best behavior when we're podcasting, since YouTube has yet to separate the 18 and under from the 18 and over uh, uh, visuals on most channels. Even though this channel specifically is directed towards 18 and over, we do not restrict it to 18 and over, which means that individuals that aren't 18 or over can still slide in and be inappropriate or come across something inappropriate. So I just don't want them to come across anything inappropriate in the comment section. So I appreciate Beggar Park for giving us that entertaining photo bomb of Donald Duck. And as soon as he said Donald Duck, I could imagine real quick Donald Duck dressed in an Arab outfit, holding one of those Acme Lab arsenals, pointing it at Bugs Bunny, who's dressed like Southern America, with the carrot hanging out of his mouth, standing behind Yosemite Sam. I just had that whole playthrough happen when I seen Donald Duck. And then I thought to myself, that's not what we're supposed to be talking about. uh, but in response to the new news that we've got going on, some Indian textile exports have already announced that they are halting manufacturing for U.S. orders, stating the uncertainty is simply too high. So they're not even going to send it out there. Now, next is going to be the auto components. This industry is huge in America because, unlike Asia, I give the most props for Asia because y'all walk and bike everywhere necessary. Outside of the ultra rich that won't get their shoes dirty, the average Asian has no problem with walking miles for entertainment. Americans are lazy, and I'm an American, so I can say that. Americans, look, I don't go to my mailbox without using my car to get there. Understand that the driveway is about 2.5 car lengths long, and I'm gonna walk to my car and drive to my mailbox and then go back into my driveway and get back into my house. That extra 30 feet of driving was not worth me walking. Americans are lazy, right? So I could talk from experience. Most of us have cars or we have friends with cars. So we you just got to understand when we start talking about the auto components are important because it's not just about new cars. It's also about used cars and certified pre-owned cars, older model cars, because these are parts that belong to cars that America has outsourced for in the past, and the replacements for those parts might necessarily be sold today. So let's talk about this real quick. India exports billions of dollars worth of transmission systems, engine parts, and electronics to American automotive manufacturers. So everybody who goes to Amoco and get their transmission worked on, odds are that some gun might have had a large quantity of components come out of India. What's that going to mean for you? In September, your transmission might cost a little bit more to be repaired than what it did before this happened. The US market is a major destination for these parts, and the sector operates on tight margins and long term supply contracts. So a 50% tariff completely upends the model. US buyers would be forced to absorb the cost or find new suppliers, neither of which is a good outcome for Indian factors or their factories. Because what would happen is that if you're talking about long-term contracts, a long-term contract is like a 5 or 10 year, 20-year contract where I will continuously buy my parts from you for the next decade. I will continue to buy my supply from you for the next presidential election. I'll continue to buy my parts from you for the next term or whatever. So long contracts. This isn't a situation where, whenever I need something, I call whoever's the cheapest. No, I'm guaranteedly going to buy from you under contract for this many years. Now, if they have to terminate those contracts because India is no longer a favorable country to buy from, India loses guaranteed sales, and that hurts. And while India is losing guaranteed sales, India is going to start having a surplus of supply with a depreciated demand. That's also going to hurt. And that's where the diminished labor force comes in at. Because if they have a larger supply, they don't have to create as much. And if they don't have to create as much, they don't need as many people in the factory. The ripple effect. Then there are gems and jewelry. Now, we already talked about this all week. American women are expensive. Ladies, before you get mad at me, American men are wasteful because just as quickly as these females will wear jewelry and gems, so will the men. Because these modern Gen Z, these boys got more diamonds in their ears than the females. They got these 20-inch herringbone covered in diamonds, $30,000 around their neck, and they trying to borrow money for a bus pass to get on the bus kind of kids that we got going on. These did so the grown men is about as bad as the females, right? And the US is a primary destination for India's world-renowned cut and polished diamonds. So Jay-Z's watch probably got cut in India. A multi-billion-dollar business. But the sector operates with razor thin margins. A sudden massive tariff threatens to wipe out profitability entirely. Special shout out to Michael. Michael showed up right at the right time. Michael, we've been on for 45 minutes already, bro. I told you we were starting early. I told you we were starting early. Michael said, I see nothing but profits from the tariffs. Well, yeah, because we're Americans. We're going to make a shit ton of money off of this. That's going to go towards our deficit. We're going to go from being $30 trillion in debt to being $15 trillion in debt by the end of the year if they keep playing around the way they do what they're doing. It is what it is. We just got to cover the spread. And we only look, we about 28 pages into 164 pages, Michael. We gonna be here for another 4 hours. I ain't got nothing to do today. I told y'all we covering 3 topics today, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Now, the best part about this is how this is gonna mess with and fluctuate the stock market, because knowing that companies that benefit from consumer products that are being shipped in from India, those products those companies are going to have a fluctuation in profits. Their fluctuation in profits is going to trigger shareholders to cut and run the way 700% ran away from Tesla. Well, actually, it was about 7 to 14% ran away from Tesla. Right after 700% ran away from the stock market. So those markets that are not benefiting from India, you can catch those as they dip and turn a profit on the way out. Is that not for me? Profits, not the government. Oh hell, how are you profiting from the government taxing India? Are you going to go over there by Russia and start buying oil by the barrel? Are you gonna? Because I don't think that. Oh shit, towels cost $1 to $2. What? Do y'all see the entrepreneurship of this guy? So I told you guys earlier in the show, towels, stuff like pretty much all the stuff you can get from Bed Bath and Beyond, like sheets and stuff to that effect, is stuff that was coming out of India, and those things are going to be taxed, which means that if you pick it up at the low price now, right when the tariffs hit, you can resell it at a cheaper price than what it's being sold at and turn a profit. How you doing, martial arts? Michael says resell that $1 to $2 at $6. That's a massive that's a massive profit. That's a $4 to $5 profit on each item. And it'll sell too. Because whoever would have bought it from the Indian manufacturer after the tariffs hit in September will buy it from Michael for less so that they can get the exact same item. So anybody who's in drop shipping, anybody who's in resale, or if you're in estate sales like Michael is, and you come in and see a market shift such as this, and you buy up as much product as you can afford, and then you resell it when the tariffs go into effect, you're going to turn a ton of profit. Make sure y'all like and subscribe as we go through this because we got a lot to go through. Now, the pain that India is going to feel would extend to numerous other sectors. Steel and aluminum exports now faces a major hurdle, and steel and aluminum was already facing quite a few hurdles from Canada and China, but now we're facing hurdles from India. The chemicals industry, which exports billions to the US, is similarly exposed. Marine products like shrimp, where India is a major global supplier of, could be priced out of the American market. Because we want that shrimp, but we quicker to pick that shrimp up from Walmart from the great value as opposed to us going and pick up the shrimp name brand or going to a 5-star restaurant and getting that shrimp. Feel me? The domino effect. Oh yes, the domino effect is substantial. These days, you're not hitting folks in the face, you hitting them in the wallet. You got to take that money out of their pocket because when you take that money out of their pocket, you gain control. These days, it's handcuffs and holding cells and civil action for capital gains. And one of the two is going to happen. You're going to sanction them, which is a ticket on a global scale that they have to pay, or incarceration like Diddy. One way or another, they're going to have to atone for what they've done. Now, all felons aside, 34 convictions for Donald Trump. He's the president of the United States and he's making billions of dollars for the United States. So he's doing a way better job of making amends for past deeds than what the average community service worker would make picking up trash on the side of the interstate. Just want to throw that out there. Not an advocate for the guy. I actually voted for Hillary, but the fact is, he's doing a good job. Now, the cumulative effect of this is staggering. Ajay Shrivastava, founder of the think tank Global Trade Research Initiative, delivered a dire forecast. He warned that the new tariffs could slash India's export to the US by a devastating 40 to 50%, And another estimate from GTIR projected a decline of nearly 30% from around $86 billion down to about $60 billion. And this isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. This represents factories going quiet, supply chains breaking, and jobs hanging in the balance. Michael says, I haven't seen a dime yet. It's a trickle down effect, buddy. It goes from billionaires to the millionaires to the middle class to the poor. That's how it is. And it happens from spending. Billionaires spend money, millionaires make money. Millionaires spend money, middle class makes money. Middle class makes spends money, the poor gets money. The poor spends every dollar that they get, borrow a little extra so that they can cover the spread and stay poor. And everything that everybody bought goes back to the billionaires. Okay, that's what's this trickle down effect. So you say that you ain't seen a dime yet. It depends on where you are in this domino effect, because you'll see a lot. Now, the U.S. has strategically targeted the pillars of India's export economy, and the fear is that they may be about to crumble. So, to see this crisis as purely an economic dispute is to miss the bigger picture. This is a geopolitical power play with the United States weaponizing trade policies to enforce its will on the international stage, where America has always been perceived as the first world and always perceived as the strongest superpower. The fact that everybody else profits off of the wasteful spending of American people, they can't make money from America if America won't let them make money from America. So if you want to make money in my yard, you have to do as I say. That makes America the leader and enforcer of rules, a hierarchy on a geopolitical scale. The Trump administration's message is unequivocal: align with our foreign policy objectives, particularly on Russia, or face severe economic consequences. They're not wasting any gas on this. They're not exhausting any troops. They're not losing any American lives on this. They have not launched one accidental rubber bullet in the direction of India. They said, if you don't cooperate, you will stay broke, which is more devastating than a black suit militia going over there and forcing cooperation from off the books military tactics. Y'all got to understand, Cold War is still a war. India finds itself in an incredibly difficult position, caught in a strategic tug of war between two of its most important partners. The relationship with Russia is historic, stretching back to the Cold War, and Russia remains India's largest supplier of military equipment and dependency that can't be unwound overnight. And on top of that, discounted Russian crude has been a critical lifeline for India, helping to manage inflation and ensure energy security for its massive population. All they had to do was just keep the shit to themselves instead of selling to other people for a profit. So, what's the side effects of the Indian crisis? What's the side effects for us, or what's the side effects for India? Because Indian factories will get shut down, people will lose their jobs, they're going to lose a bunch of money, their economy is going to suffer to the point of collapse if this happens for a prolonged period of time, or India is going to stop buying oil from Russia until Russia stops using money to destroy Ukraine, which ultimately If Russia was behaving, India wouldn't be a target. But because Russia's not behaving, India is a target. Because again, the United States does not have to interject into the Ukraine war with Russia and launch missiles on behalf of Ukraine. Because if Russia doesn't have money to buy weapons, you will eventually run out of bullets if you can't afford to reload. So, again, the dynamic is take money out of Russia's pocket by taking the supply chain out of Russia's pocket. By taking money out of Russia's pocket, you're taking money out of India's pocket, which ultimately stops Ukraine from being blown to smithereens by Russia. Indirect effect, but it's cause and effect. Time to buy hotels. Most are owned by India. You know what's funny about that? If India if India loses enough, they will put a lot of their hotels up for sale very cheap, and then you can pick up a supply chain of hotels and make a shit ton of money. Just make sure that you put an account somewhere with high interest yields to cover the cost of lawyers and settlements because hotels get sued a lot. You just gotta you're gonna have to put a large quantity of money in a large bank account with a large quantity of interest so that when you need a lawyer, the lawyer's only job is to stall and then settle. That way, you don't have a conflict in public eye. You don't have a judgment against you. Nothing ever goes to court. You just stall until you can't stall anymore and then settle before trial and settle low. uh, but China is present to help Russia. What's your opinion? Um, China is not present to help Russia. China is trying to sell TikTok to the United States and not get that 145% tariff. There's $1 trillion profit that China is going to lose out on, $1 trillion a year worth of profits, allegedly, as claimed by Donald Trump. That this is $1 trillion business because 170 million American users, which is the largest majority of the users on the platform, is American citizens. China would lose more money failing to close this deal with the United States than what they would ever make partnering with Russia. Again, take this part. If you were making a couple 100,000 a year and 175,000 of that came from me, and you pissed me off, and now I don't want to do business with you no more. You still can make money, but you're going to make a third of what you was making when you was working with me. If I tell you don't do something, you're not going to do it. Now, take if Michael was also doing business with me on the side, that's your homeboy, but at the same time, he's about to close a $1 billion, $1 trillion deal where not only is he going to get paid from doing business with me in the immediate, he will make long term profits for years to come by doing business with me. If he keeps partnering with you, I'm not going to do business with him. And then I'm going to stop him from making profits in my backyard. So then both of y'all stop making money from me, but y'all both only survive off of 75% of the money that you make off of my backyard. That's how US is controlling everything. America started off by outsourcing everything to other countries and then importing it back into the United States to make a profit. Everybody else followed suit by saying, shit, America's wasteful. Let's send all of our profits to America and make a profit off of Americans because Americans are wasteful. Now that everybody's gotten used to that over the past 100 years, now it's easy to say America's in charge because what Donald Trump has learned and enforced is that if you want to keep making money in America, you got to follow my rules. If you don't care, that's fine. You don't have to follow my rules, but I won't let you sell anything in my backyard. So, I mean, my opinion is, I mean, shit, if they want to sell, if ByteDance is going to sell TikTok to Donald Trump's constituents, Beijing is going to follow the instructions of the U.S. and not support Russia's efforts against Ukraine, which is one of the reasons why India is able to get the crude oil at a wholesale surplus a surplus quantity of crude oils from Russia at a wholesale price is specifically because Russia is not hurting for oil because nobody's buying it. This is equivalent to when we was kids and the captain of the football team said, "Don't mess with that guy. We ain't cool no more." If you mess with that guy, you are no longer in the in crowd. That's basically what's going on right now. Trump's saying if you want to keep making money, stay on my side of the argument. Whatever argument that I'm in with somebody else, if you want to keep making money in my yard, you stay on my side of the argument. Don't put your 2 cents in. Stay on my side of the argument. Keep making money. But then on the other side, other people are like, hey, what's going on here? This is my house, the White House. Martial arts screams Russia. But Russia for what? Russia for what? And this is interesting because I mean I've covered India and I think I've covered Russia as some good places to go, but right now they're not playing ball. They're not friendly. Now, this is going to be one of the interesting parts about being an American citizen because your US passport is going to be less accepted during these conflictual times in certain places because of the conflict between the world powers. Michael says, I'll play both sides of the fence. That's hard to do because India is experiencing that exact same situation. America does not want them to give profits to Russia, and India is trying to make profit from the US. So here's the problem. This is what's going on. Let's lay this out. Russia is hurting for squirting. You're right about that. This is what's going on right now. So here's the deal. Now, remember I told you guys about 30 minutes ago that indirect action could negatively affect the direct transaction. If you're selling stuff in America and that turns you a profit, you use that profit to go buy crude oils from Russia. Russia's crude oils supports the war against Ukraine. The United States does not support the war against Ukraine. So the United States will say, hey, I will not let you make a profit from me as long as you are providing a profit to Russia because I do not want to support the war against Ukraine. The average American citizen, knowing this now, would say, I will not buy anything that is made in India so that I do not support the war against Ukraine. Which means that even if it's in America, it won't get sold because if they know that it was manufactured in India and India is displaying behavior of supporting the war against Ukraine, then Indian products won't get sold in America. Now, because of this, US is not going to say don't sell anything in my backyard. He did the math and said, I'm going to tax you so much money that everything you sell in my backyard, I keep the profits until you cooperate with me. So now India will barely break even. And they still have to go buy the crude oil from Russia or find another source to buy the crude oil from. And then Russia will eventually not have profits because India won't have any money, which means that Russia won't have any money, which means that the bombing will stop because they won't have any more money to make explosives. Michael says, history note, Shell Motor Company sold oil to both sides during World War II. And I did tell you guys that if y'all wanted to invest in oils right now, Shell, Chevron, and Exxon are the ones that you want to buy into. And those are growth stocks. So, historical note, Shell has been around since World War II. That's a blue chip company. You can go and buy you some Shell stock, buy the competitor Chevron stock, because when Shell stock goes down, Chevron stock goes up, and when Chevron stock goes down, Shell stock goes up. And you can treat that like buying between Bitcoin and Ethereum and just continue to make profits off of growth stocks. Um, and this is like a fourfold scenario. But that's a good note, Michael. That's a very good note. Now, from New Delhi's perspective, these are sovereign decisions made in the national interest, right? They're not specifically deliberately choosing Russia's side against the war on Ukraine. They're just buying a bunch of oil dirt cheap and trying to turn a profit off of it in the market off of whatever they don't need. On the other hand, the United States is India's largest export market and until now has been a cornerstone of its foreign policy through initiatives Quad. Washington has spent years cultivating India as a strategic partner to counter an increasingly assertive China. So when you asked me earlier about what about China, that's what just happened. India was supposed to be the counterproductiveness to China. This tariff action shatters that narrative of partnership, treating India not as an ally to be persuaded, but as a problem to be punished. So, this wider context fuels India's argument about being unfairly singled out. Well, the difference between India and China is India's got a $1 trillion platform that America's going to profit from. If China's got a $1 trillion platform that America's going to profit from, and India is aiding, at, whether it's intentional or accidental, aiding in a conflict that America wants to stop, India is no longer in the favorable eye of the United States because America is going to make profits off of the extra tariffs on India, and they're going to make profits off the $1 trillion platform of TikTok. But America will not benefit from their ally Ukraine and the precious minerals in Ukraine continuously being bombed. How can the U.S. go and get their resources from Ukraine if Russia won't stop? Because you and I both know that America will sacrifice 5 U.S. or 40 U.S. soldiers to bring home one soldier because no man gets left behind is a U.S. policy. Even Kamala Harris went out there and rescued a bunch of American felons from, I do believe it was Russia, because they had broke local laws and was sitting in a prison. And I do believe about 21 of them got recovered out of 22 because we don't leave nobody nowhere. So you understand that if we want to go to Ukraine and go and get the precious minerals that are in Ukraine, which is going to help with our fintech development, our green energy development, our AI development, our tech development, our smartphone development, our electric car development, our Tesla development, we got to send people over there to Ukraine, where if our people get caught in a crossfire of an explosion, you do realize that the way the Twin Towers went down, Russia would end up in the same scenario. And I did the magic fingers because I want y'all to understand the sparklies of hellfire and brimstone falls from the sky when you start blowing up American troops in other people's countries. So to prevent America from being caught into a crossfire that could turn into World War God know what, America's like, look, can y'all stop fighting so we can go over there and dig a hole? Special shout out to Mad Her. He said they, the USA, want to try to do a coup in India, same as Pakistan, our Bangladesh, our Myanmar, our Sri Lanka, by student protests, by election fraud narratives. They are trying very, very hard. Look, Americans protest off of all kinds of stuff, bro. Let prices at Starbucks go too high. You'll see 40, 45, or 50 middle class Americans out there with picket signs taking off days from work so that they can boycott the prices at Starbucks. I mean, it don't take much to start a protest. Americans don't do peaceful protests. Americans start off with 20 or 30 people out there with picket signs and a megaphone screaming like Paul Bearer out there raising hell like Paul Heyman. And then all of a sudden, one jackass with a can of spray paint and a mask decides to throw a smoke bomb. And then all of a sudden, you got SWAT out there. Look at what happened in California. It don't take much. And then these college students, I want you to understand about these college students. These college students in 2025 are not like the college students from before. You said I can't see comments. Hold on. I can't zoom in on the comments. His comment says that they want to try to do a coup in India, same as Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka by student protests, by election fraud narratives, and they're trying very, very hard. That's what he said. What other comments are you trying to look for? Because I put comments on the screen. It's right there. You can't see it. It's right there. Now, don't worry. It'll catch up if the screen froze because we started early, and usually in about 6 minutes, it tends to refresh everything and give us the middle finger. So I'm gonna try to see if it holds true to us already. But uh, I'm going to tell you that the college students in 2025 are not like the college students in 2000. In 2025, these are children that have been coddled by their parents until they were 20, kicked out of the house until as soon as they went to college, and now they have the freedom to be dumbasses because they just started tasting adulthood with their underage drinking at the frat party because I told you they're 20. They're not even 21 yet. And now all it takes is for one radical to say, hey, let's protest. And in any country that is allegedly supposed to be democratic, where the freedom of speech is now being observed, those countries are also going to have unstructuralized, unexperienced protests where you will see crowds of individuals marching up and down the street, not accomplishing change, which makes no sense. And that's one of the reasons why I say uh, it's going to happen anyway. Because think about what happened in the United Kingdom. I think it was 100,000 women went protesting about women's equality and fair pay and all this other stuff. And it turned out that during the time of that protest, big businesses had reported that that was the most peaceful day that they ever had in their workforce, and they had gotten more work done during that protest than what they did before the protest started, which was a slap in the face. But they still got their equality pay, but they was out there shirts off protesting in the street demanding extra money because they're women, and they inadvertently proved the incorrect point. They wanted more money to be equal, but they showed how less productive they were by not going out there. 100,000 women went missing out of the workforce, and all the men celebrated by getting work done. So you talk about a protest, you got to really tiptoe into the fact that these in every country, the U.S. ain't got to start the protest by going over to those other countries and force a coup. All it takes is for the U.S. to put protesting on TV and on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, and have other countries watch how Americans act, and everybody follows the lead of Americans, because what was a trend 5 years ago is now trending in other countries today. There it is. Give it 3 minutes. And that situation, look, you counting down, bro. It just flashed across the screen the second time. I'm waiting on it. First browser going to go down is going to be Twitter X, and the second browser going to go down is YouTube. So they don't have to They don't have to finagle a forced coup out there. Beggar says U.S. should put tariffs in pharmaceuticals and find alternatives of India. Well, see, you, I like the way you think, but see, U.S. is smart. The U.S. is smart. We making way more money off them drugs. Ain't nobody gonna. America making too much money off them drugs. They are not gonna let them drugs slide. They want them drugs to come in. They not gonna. They're not gonna. They'll stop stuff that don't matter to them because just like with China, we needed the groceries. So the 35% on the tariffs was on the groceries. They still got high tariffs on steel and stuff like that coming from China. Cars are still going to be somewhat expensive now that the tariff change has occurred. It's not going to improve. We got 2 minutes left before that screen flicker. I'm waiting on it, bro. He counting down. He counting down. It's happened every day at the same time. We're gonna see if it does it today. But you're right. If he was being uniform, he would just tax India outright. But when Donald Trump does something, he's not doing something that's gonna fuck him over. He's doing something that's gonna fuck over the other person. So they make a lot of money off the pharmaceuticals. They're not going to tax the pharmaceuticals. They're going to tax the stuff that don't matter to them because we're going to make money by increasing tariffs on foreign parts. That will look. It hasn't done it yet. That will support buying and manufacturing in America. But if he's profiting off of foreign pharmaceuticals, he's not going to tax that because he wants to keep making money off of foreign pharmaceuticals. Every time the price goes up on offshore items made in another country, that supports his initiative of Made in America First. But you're never going to get drugs made in America cheaper than you can get drugs made in another country. So if he's not, and then you say, why doesn't he find an alternative? I already told y'all on Wednesday, America's got an alternative. Bangladesh is doing pharmaceuticals. And Bangladesh has like a high class, look, bro, it didn't happen. What? Look, I'm looking too. It didn't happen. Give it a few minutes. It might happen. I think because what happened was I had to do the update on the VPN because we run off of a VPN in order for y'all to not we would be on the YouTube restricted list. So everybody who's watching right now, go to your cell phone's settings and go to for YouTube and go to restricted mode and turn that off, and you will come to find out I put up way more content than what you found today because anything that is considered political, sensitive natured, or too vulgar or whatever the case may be is put into a restricted mode for adults only content, which reduces the quantity of viewership that we get, which prevents you guys from benefiting from any podcast, not just mine, that provides you with adult level content that you guys could either benefit from or entertain you guys. Well, which is YouTube's way of trying not to get sued with Instagram and Facebook, but it prevents you because you didn't know this because they didn't give everybody a notice that said, hey, we have a restricted mode that we turned on to prevent kids from seeing stuff they're not supposed to see. It just happened. So now that you guys are watching the show, I need to put that up there across the screen every day that says, if you haven't checked your YouTube settings, go there and turn off your restricted mode. You will see more of YouTube. YouTube has way more stuff available when you turn off restricted mode. But the next thing is, and so I run off of VPN so that you guys can see me. Then the other thing is about Bangladesh. Bangladesh, as we just covered last week Wednesday, is doing pharmaceuticals, high grade technology, fintech, energy, green energy. And they're not just doing green energy, they're doing green energy on the water. They're doing solar panels on the water. So if America wants to get textiles, they could throw up the middle finger to India and go get it from Bangladesh. If America wants to get more pharmaceuticals, they can throw up the middle finger to India and they can go get it from Bangladesh. Or they can keep making money from India and keep getting from Bangladesh and just tax the bejesus out of the most profitable areas of India just to get India to follow instructions. So this isn't so much trying to force India to go bankrupt. They're just trying to get India to stop funding Russia until Russia stops bombing Ukraine. So you understand the same way that the United States taxed Canada until Canada cooperated, the same way they taxed Mexico until Mexico cooperated, the same way they taxed China until China sold TikTok, the same way that they're going to tax India until India stops selling to Russia or Russia stops blowing up Ukraine. So here's the thing, if Russia leaves Ukraine alone, America will drop the tariff on India because Russia will no longer be a threat to Ukraine. And the deal between India and Russia would not be a problem anymore. But because Russia refuses to stop, America is going to take money out of Russia's pocket by taking money out of India's pocket. That's what it is. We have survived the 11/21 flicker off. I'm surprised. Now, India's officials have been quick to point out that China buys more Russian oil than India does, yet faces a lower overall tariff rate, which is what the other gentleman was talking about earlier about how China is a partner of Russia. They also note that several European nations who are treaty allies of the US continue to import Russia energy, but haven't been subjected to similar punitive measures. But India is the only one that's getting it at a discount and then selling it at a profit. China, again, trillions of dollars by selling TikTok. Not the same. America's making money from everybody. This has led to the accusation of America's double standard and has hardened India's resolve not to bow to what it sees as bullying. The Kremlin has predictably sided with India, with a spokesperson condemning the US tariffs and stating that sovereign countries have the right to choose their own trade partners. Now, this entire episode reveals a fundamental clash of worldviews. The Trump administration sees a world of transactional relationships where economic leverage is a primary tool of statecraft. India, however, operates on a principle of strategic autonomy, attempting to maintain independent relationships with multiple global powers, which is what Michael was saying do earlier, play both ends. The tariff crisis is the explosive result of these two philosophies colliding. It's a high stakes gamble by the US, betting that economic pain can force a strategic realignment. The risk is that it may only succeed in alienating a critical partner. Now, this is a turning point with no easy answer. Should India retaliate with its own tariffs, risking a full blown trade war, or should it negotiate a deal which might involve painful concessions on its foreign policies? Or should it accelerate its pivot to other trading partners? What do you guys think India's next move should be? Let me know with your thoughts in the comments below because this conversation will have all of us needing to come to a consensus and formulate a strategy. Now, facing an economic assault of this magnitude, India stands at a strategic crossroad. Its response in the coming weeks will not only determine the future of its relationship with the United States, but it will also shape its place in the global economic order. India should focus on made in India, but it's not about being made in India. India makes it in India and then sells it in America. So, how would India thrive from foreign profits if India is not selling in America anymore, losing a large majority of its foreign profits? Find alternatives. So India should redirect their trade practices to other countries, severing the partnership with the United States. That is a risk that America is taking by implementing this uh, tariff. Because if India refuses to back down and continues to trade with Russia, and Russia continues to use the profits from India to bomb Ukraine, then the U.S. will no longer tolerate the trade practices between the U.S. and India, and then India will start struggling with profits, which will force India to go somewhere else. When India is no longer a partner of the United States in world trade, you understand that allies start not being allies in other areas. There are several paths that India can take, and each with its own immense risks and potential rewards. The first option is to fight fire with fire, which is retaliation, because India could impose its own steep tariff on American goods. And you've seen how that worked out with China. This would be a powerful statement of defiance, signaling that it will not be economically coerced. But you do understand that United States already has implemented a retaliation tariff that was signed into office, I do believe, back in March, that went into effect in April. So whatever tariff increase that another country implies on America, America will counter that with the same level of tariff. So since the US has increased 25% tariff, if India retaliated with a 25% tariff, that would trigger the US to impose a 25% counter tariff, which would leave India still with a 50% tariff. That trade war would continue until 100 to 200%, because you've seen that where China had 125% tariff on the United States, the US had a 145% tariff on China, where there was still almost a 25 to 30% tariff increase from US to China. Now China has a 25% tariff against the US, and the US has a 34% tariff against China, where the US is profiting by almost 15%. You're not going to win against a billionaire when you start taxing money, because he can afford to pay it. We're one of many countries that operates in debt. Other countries, there are more countries that operate in a profit. We operate in debt, and we're willing to operate in a lot of debt. That's what makes us more successful, because we're willing to sell our debt to our American people so that our government can operate in the red. Other countries don't have that capabilities. I think China is the second largest economy next to the United States, and they pretty much do the same thing, and they buy a lot of America's debt. Now, the targets could be symbolic and politically sensitive, like American agriculture products or high value goods that have been a focus in past trade disputes. But the goal would be to inflict enough economic pain on the U.S. exports to create domestic political pressure on the Trump administration to back down. However, this path is full of risks because, as I've explained, a tit for tat tariff escalation could spiral into an all-out trade war and a conflict where India might have more to lose in the short term than America would gain in the long term. India will not put tariff on America because for countering China, India needs the US. Special shout out to Park. He talking. The main problem is US provides money to Pakistan, which they use for terrorism. Now, I ain't even gonna say nothing about that. Like, look, he talking. That's statistical fact right there. But they provide money to a lot of people. That well, he did withdraw a lot of money from a lot of countries where the Biden administration was paying a lot of countries to accept their citizens back, but those countries were not accepting their citizens back. So Donald Trump has stopped paying those countries because some of those countries were not up appealing to the agreement. But when America does go to places like Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, and blow a bunch of stuff up, once America finished getting what they wanted from that country, they do send a lot of money to that country to rebuild that country at least back to its former glory before the devastation. But again, even though Pakistan does have terrorist groups, the Pakistan government is not a terrorist government. The same way South Korea is not supporting the actions of North Korea, and North Korea is part of Korea, and the government of Korea claims North and South Korea as just Korea, but North Korea does not respect the laws, rules, and enforcements of South Korea. So I agree. I think that's crazy with the way things are going. So you're right. Like but I, and that does support the fact that India said that United States is being double standard. It does support the fact, just like you said with Pakistan, it does support the fact that America can be double standard. Whatever they want from Pakistan are getting, so they're not tariffing Pakistan the way they're tariffing India. But what they want India to stop doing, India is not agreeing with. Park said, "Okay, dude, bye." Make America great again. Make India great again too. Hey, I can't say anything about Make America Great Again. I only come from a uniform basis talking about how from the left side of the fence and the right side of the fence, certain things don't make sense. And then from an area of things that does make sense, I can see why certain things happen, even if I don't agree with them. But just because I can rationalize why something happens doesn't mean that I support it. Just because I talk about it on this podcast, because it impacts our ability to make money, because that's the holistic foundation of this podcast is how can the average person make money off of the volatile economy. It doesn't mean that I support the governmental arguments or the policy trades or anything to that effect. I can point out that because things are going south in certain areas, that money can be made by the average person off of the dispute between the political powers. So don't assume that this is a pro-Trump podcast because I could care less who's in power. I know that those of us that follow this channel on a daily basis is going to make money off of the chaos that's about to happen. He says, but government don't control Pakistan. Army chief controls Pakistan. Okay. And whatever America wants from the army chief, America gets. And when America not getting what they want from Pakistan, America's going to treat Pakistan the way they treated Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other nations back when the Twin Towers went down. America either buys it or kills for it. That has been the governmental policy. We either take it over in war or we buy it in trade. Either way it goes, whatever America wants, eventually, indirectly or directly, America will get. That is why they are considered the first world power of the world. So whether they get it in trade, whether they get it in negotiations, whether they get it in third party negotiations, because you have to understand what's going on with India is a byproduct of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. It is a byproduct. So America wants Ukraine to stop being attacked. And in order to stop Ukraine from being attacked, Russia has to stop blowing up Ukraine. In order for Russia to stop blowing up Ukraine, Russia has to run out of money. In order for Russia to stop making money, India has to stop supplying Russia with so much money. In order for India to stop supplying Russia with so much money, India has to listen to the U.S. In order for India to listen to the U.S. has to take money out of India's pocket. This is an indirect attack against the anti-Ukraine attack scenario. That's what it is. This is a very influential political power utilizing 200 plus countries as chess pieces on a chessboard to get exactly what he wants to get, which ultimately is for there to be less explosions or no explosions at all in Ukraine, to have no death in Ukraine, to have no fire and brimstone in Ukraine. Why? So that the U.S. can go over there with some shovels and dig a bunch of holes and take all the precious minerals from Ukraine. So here's another thing, Park, before you walk away. The funniest thing about this is one of the reasons why he's promoting the stopping of attacks in Ukraine, because you know how they let Egypt get burned to the ground, and Egypt is a bunch of sand. He's trying to stop Ukraine from being burned to the ground, because every time you blow up Ukraine, you blow up the precious minerals, and that's what he wants, is the precious minerals. So truth be told, he's supporting Ukraine not being blown up so he can get the minerals from Ukraine. But that requires him to stop Russia, which requires to stop Russia's funds, which requires him to stop India from funding Russia, which requires him to have India stop making money from the United States. So like Michael said, checkmate. In order for me to get stuff from Ukraine, I got to stop giving money to India. Now, back to your decision about Pakistan still getting money from the United States. The United States ain't giving away money to Pakistan. The United States is buying resources from Pakistan at a rate that they agreed upon when the United States decided to stop blowing up Pakistan. When we recalled the troops, we had an understanding that we was going to get what we want at the price that we negotiated on. Now, how many Pakistani terrorist attacks have happened on American soil since Americans stopped blowing up Pakistan? I got your comment up there, Michael. I'm going to put that up there real quick. He said, but U.S. always buys energies from Russia. Fertilizer. Yes. Up until Russia refused to stop blowing up. You understand that the whole problem right now is not that they don't want India to do it ever. They want India to stop doing it right now so that Russia can cease fire against Ukraine. As soon as Russia ceases fire against Ukraine, India can go back to selling, to buying from Russia. It is only a for the right now scenario. This is a lot like DUI checkpoints on the interstate. You can go as fast as you want on the interstate till they put 45 cops out there and a bunch of cones, and everybody's got to drive in a straight line and get that DUI checkpoint. Doesn't stop people from speeding going in the opposite direction. It just means until we decide to stop fucking up on this side of the street, everybody's got to slow down. That's what that's about. It's about activating a school zone at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where the otherwise the speed limit would be triple the speed limit of that school zone when that school zone is activated. It has nothing to do with long-term permanent change, unless Russia continues to bomb Ukraine for the next 20 years. Then it would be a permanent change. But if Russia decides to cease fire by Christmas, India could go back to buying oil from Russia by Christmas. The fertilizer that the United States used to get from Russia, they can get from somewhere else. The same way the United States gets oil from Canada, but they tax the bejesus out of Canada. Canada taxed 25% on electricity in New York, in Manhattan. Well, who cares? Americans are willing to pay for the 25% increase on the electricity. So if fertilizer from Russia, because Russia is not the primary source of fertilizer for the United States. So if fertilizer starts costing more money, Donald Trump's like, fuck, if we're willing to pay fertilizer so that we can plant flowers in our front yard, pay for the damn fertilizer. This is a capitalist country. But we're not going, the United States will not go out of business because Russia is no longer selling its fertilizer. That's the thing. Fertilizer is going to impact agriculture, yes, but fertilizer is not going to put the United States out of business, because made in America is what Donald Trump is promoting. So create fertilizer in America. Fertilizer starts becoming hard to come by. We're going to start promoting more hydroponic farms, which means that those farmers can take that 100,000 acres of land and cultivate it with shipping containers that will put ecosystems in each shipping container to mass produce 10 times more resources per shipping container than the natural land itself, which, if you remember from science class, will allow the natural ground to replenish its own nutrients and then do a slash and burn technique where you can then go back to planting on the regular soil. So, I mean, you don't necessarily need to go and buy fertilizer from Russia. You choose to. But you are right. America can buy energies from Russia. Now, what Michael said a while back was the Federal Reserve is the king on the chessboard, and he creates money and determines the field we all play on. And that is definitely the truth. Is they have the whole bowl of fertilizer. But you know what's funny about the fertilizer? You don't get bags of fertilizer talking about some made in Russia. You get fertilizer like cow manure and stuff like that, which come from the farms, really. Not diminishing your argument at all, Park. But my point is that I have covered across the last 11 months different countries around the world. And 6 months ago, I covered more than one country that had more than one type of precious metal. In fact, I covered an entire podcast about precious metals. And the following week, I covered an entire podcast about precious minerals, which is not the same. And precious minerals holds more value than gold because it is undervalued, but in higher demand. And it is utilized in all of the technology, smartphones, solar panels, smart cars, electric batteries, all of the stuff that we're starting to focus on in development. And countries like Ukraine has those resources for the low. The dirt they walk on is the gold we're trying to scoop up and make profits off of. And every time you burn it, it loses its value. So regardless of where America spends its money or Pakistan, China, you know, think of one of the most terrorist group filled countries around the world and just assume America sends money over there. Or worse, let's just assume that America drops off its used weapons that it doesn't need anymore and just gives it away to a terrorist group, just for the sake of discussion. Assume that, and then assume they're not blowing up my profits by setting Ukraine on fire. And if I want to make profits from Ukraine, that's my goal for 25 to make profits from Ukraine. I've to stop the fire in Ukraine. And to stop the fire in Ukraine, I got to stop Russia from setting the fire. And to stop Russia from setting the fire, I've got to stop India from giving Russia money to set the fire, which means I got to stop India from making the money, which means I've got to stop giving India money. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. I'm not saying nothing that you said is wrong, Park. I definitely agree with what you got going on. But what I'm trying to tell you is that that is why India is getting what other countries are not getting because India is interfering with the United States' ultimate goal, which is to get the precious minerals from Ukraine. We've got somebody. American is buying energy from Russia, and interestingly, more amounts of U.S. dollars giving to Russia than India. Not right now while they're trying to put a stop to it. How much resources have America bought from Russia in the last 90 days when US is telling India do not buy from Russia? Okay. So while the US was buying from Russia earlier this year, the US was buying from Russia last year. Right now, while the peace talks that was supposed to happen between Russia and Ukraine did not work out, US stopped buying from Russia and told India to do the same to force Russia to stop blowing up Ukraine. Until Russia stops blowing up Ukraine, US will get their resources from somewhere else. And they're telling everybody that partners with the US to do the same thing. The same way we say protest a big business that we don't like because they did something that we don't like by don't going to that business and buy anything from that business until that business changes its platform. We've protested Target in the past. We've protested Walmart in the past. We've protested Calvin Klein in the past. But I recall, as a matter of fact, I believe that we protest Nike back in the day when we found out that they were being funded by sweatshops until that stopped. But once it stopped, people are still buying Jordans at $325 a shoe, and Jordans are made by Nike, which is made in Asia, which could be. manufactured by a factory that doesn't have an age restriction. Does anybody care about that right now? No, because the precious minerals on the ground in Ukraine are more valuable than the Jordans being made in Asia. Doesn't make it right. It just makes it is what it is. I'm not saying that I agree with what's going on. I told y'all that this is going to change the way we make money, and I was going to tell you how, and then I was going to tell you what we can do to navigate around it. So, while I completely support anybody who comes to this podcast from Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube with their political opinion about what's going on with India, Russia, the United States, or any other one of the 200 major countries around the world, and you can put your 2 cents in appropriately, and I will put it up on the screen and we can discuss it because I got nothing to do for the next 12 hours. I want you to understand that I am not at any point in time promoting a political position. I am only talking about a monetary change that is going to cause a shift in our decision to make and sell and invest and save. That's all I'm talking about today. But I do want to hear your opinions. And like Park, I am not going to devalue your opinion. I want to hear your opinion. I will rationalize it with you. We will discuss it all night long. Just note, I am not putting up a political position. I am not for nor against whatever Donald Trump does. And I am not for or against whatever the United States government does against any other country around the world. I just know, as an American investor, that the decisions of the top will impact me in the middle. And I'm going to tell everybody else what we can do to navigate around that. That's all we're doing today is discussing how do we get around what's about to happen with the money. Because just like I told y'all 2 hours ago, is that come September 1st, if India doesn't change, you're going to see less Indian products on the shelf. You're going to see less stocks that are less businesses that are supported by NASDAQ, less businesses on NASDAQ that are supported by Indian products making profits, which means that they're going to have less shareholders, which means their stock values are going to change. But you also note that if you buy into those companies, right when you hear that Russia stopped bombing the Ukraine, shortly after that, you will hear India stop being tariffed by the US, which will lead you to seeing those companies that are still getting products from India start increasing in value. And if you buy low, you can sell that stock high. And that's what I was talking about today. I don't lose sleep at night for every bomb that hits over there. Okay. So he did his research. He said 24,900 well, $2,496 million in the last 6 months. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Penny loafers, soap, saddles, and shoes. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give a special shout out to this individual right here because this is the first time somebody has literally had a disagreement and has actually brought facts to the discussion. So let's go ahead and discuss these facts. So, how much money has the U.S. Spent in Russia in the last 3 months? You got your information from Google. Direct U.S. government spending in Russia over the last 3 months is effectively zero, as there are no records of official U.S. aid funds, investments, or development assistance sent directly to the U.S. since the invasion of Ukraine. Instead, all financial flows have been sanctioned, restrictions, or military related spending in support of Ukraine and regional partners. No direct aid. Recent sources confirm the U.S. is not providing financial or diplomative aid to Russia after the full scale invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. implemented strict sanctions aimed at isolating Russia from global financial systems and banned almost all government to government financial activities, imports, and business dealings. While U.S. imports from Russia, such as energy commodities, have decreased, some trades, not aids, persist. For example, the U.S. imported Russian goods worth 24.51 billion from January to August of 2025, but this includes previous years and most recent trends indicating further declines. Import numbers are for private transactions, not government spending within Russia, aid to Ukraine, and regional military spending. All U.S. government spending in the context of Russia is explicitly directed either toward Ukraine, supporting NATO's allies facing Russian aggression, or enforcing sanctions regulations on Russian trade. In the last 3 months, there is no evidence of substantial U.S. governmental outlay inside Russia. Now, the sanctions and asset freezes. U.S. actions in the past 3 months have tightened sanctions and forced asset freezes for Russian entities or um, oligarchies, and these moves restrict US related financial flows into Russia and are not counted as spending. All credible sources agree there is no direct money spent by the US in Russia in the last 3 months. All financial activities by the US government have been hostile sanctions, restrictions, and support for opposing Russia's war in Ukraine. Some private businesses actively remain mainly limited to imports of select commodities such as uranium and fertilizer, but these do not reflect government spending. All right. You got yours from Google. I got mine for Perplexity. Now, he said, we are thinking outside the box. We are brainstorming. Come and join us. Look, y'all can like and subscribe. I take all challengers because when I said that he was the now picture this, sir. You said 24.96 million, right? In the last 6 months, which would have occurred 3 months before the last 3 months, right? Since I told you, because 3 months ago would have been what, uh June, the end of May, beginning of June, when Trump and Putin and the guy from Ukraine were all talking about ceasefire. He was buying oil and stuff from them before, but now he's not. Now here's the thing: the oil and stuff that he's getting, fertilizer and all the stuff that he's getting from Russia. Let me ask you a question: how much money do you think Russia is making off of that oil if they're being taxed sanctions for not ceasing fire? So if I'm going to let let's put this in context for the average individual. Let's say that the government's going to allow you to grow weed in your backyard. They're going to allow you to sell the weed from your house. They're not going to arrest you. They're not going to cause you any problems, but they're going to tax you or sanction you, ticket you for the possession and distribution of, where you will have to pay a nominal fee for the possession and distribution of your resources until such time as you comply with the governmental expectations. You might be making money, but you will be giving it to the government as debt, which is not really turning a profit. Michael said, oops, I forgot. Remember to like and subscribe. Woo! You said this data starts from January to June. Yes, but my data starts from June until August. So which one is more effective? Make sure that you guys hit that like button and activate those reaction buttons. I don't understand which side of the screen it's on because I got a flip screen here. Why is U.S. punishing? Why is U.S. purchasing uranium from them? Okay, remember when I talked to you about um, welcome to Washington State? Special shout out to Washington State. Why are they purchasing uranium? Remember I told you that I covered a whole show about the precious metals and the precious minerals. Ukraine has minerals that the U.S. wants. Russia has minerals that the U.S. wants, and we're utilizing those metals to create Um, Technology. Long story short, it's technology. The equipment that's going into your smartphones, the equipment that's going into the electric batteries, the stuff that goes into your Tesla, the stuff that goes into your smart car, your smart house, your smart appliances, the stuff that goes into the solar panels. This is the precious minerals that the US wants to go and get from Ukraine. And every time you blow up Ukraine, you destroy unreplaceable precious minerals. That's why they want Russia to stop doing what they're doing. So yes, when the US does not provide money to Russia, when you're talking about sanctions, freezing assets from the government. So, yes, I bought that oil from you, but I'm not going to pay you for that oil until you stop blowing up Russia. Sanctions, I'm going to tax you. So, yeah, I'm going to give you the money, but I'm going to take it back and we're going to write it off your bill. That's like the bartender giving you drinks on the house and then making you work off your tab. It's still not free. Nuclear reactors. But hold on, look, hold on. Okay, nuclear reactors. I want to talk about nuclear reactors real quick. When you start thinking about nuclear reactors, I don't know if you guys seen this, but there was this one guy that was at one of those tech things, and he showed this gigantic egg that was a nuclear reactor that can go into people's individual homes and provide unlimited supplies of power for a single family home. And those types of technology is being developed with stuff like uranium from Russia. Nuclear reactors are going to be some of the things that they're going to be trying to impose into electric cars so that electric cars can have longer battery life. Nuclear reactors are probably going to be sitting in most people's homes in the next 50 to 100 years right next to the hot water heater. If India won't purchase oil from them, then can you imagine the per barrel oil rate goes? Now you're talking money. Now you're talking money. That's because nobody's buying oil from Russia because the United Nations said stop supporting Russia financially. So stop buying products from Russia. Outside of the bare necessities, stop buying products from Russia, right? And then sanction Russia so that they don't turn a profit off of whatever they sell. Ultimately, you're going to have a dollar for dollar dip because Russia's going to have a bunch of oil that they can't sell, packaged up and ready to be shipped out, that they can't sell, which means the dollar for dollar value of that oil is going to be dirt cheap, which is why India is able to get it at such a low price. And India fucked up because instead of them just getting it, getting what they need and minding their own fucking business, they bought almost all of the dirt cheap oil and said, "Ooh, we can turn a profit," and sold what they didn't need to other countries on the open market, which undermines the United Nations effort to stop Russia from bombing Ukraine by stopping Russia from being able to afford to continue the assault. Ultimately, Russia can't afford to be in this war. So if Ukraine stops, Russia, I mean, if Russia stops, Ukraine will negotiate some kind of peace treaty because Ukraine is. I want you to understand something real quick. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna come from the other side of this. Do you know that Ukraine is supporting the war with OnlyFans profits? They're that desperate right now. They are supporting the 50% of taxation from Ukraine is taxing OnlyFans 50% of their profits, or no, 50% of the taxation going to the military. So millions upon millions of dollars for adult content that would otherwise be banned in the United States and other countries around the world. They have legalized it so that they can take the money from it because those people are willing to pay taxes and put it towards the Ukraine defense. If you're using online digital prostitution to support the war, they are desperate, bro. So if Russia just stops, Ukraine would be glad to negotiate something. And what's the bombing each other about? Who pissed on whose shoe to have these two people blowing each other up all year? It doesn't matter who passed the first lick. I'm pretty sure Russia passed enough licks that they got theirs. They got their revenge. They took two eyes for one nose. and it's time to stop. But they won't stop. It is ultimately observed as Russia allegedly working on colonizing Ukraine, making Ukraine the new Russia. So when you ask, imagine what that per barrel rate is going to be. Imagine what the stock market for oil is going to be with world trade shifting from Russia right now. That's what today's topic is about, my friend. Buy your ass into some oil because while the oil prices are dropping, you can get in on the ground floor, whether you get in with ETFs, which I would recommend you get in with ETFs because it's easier to get your money out, or you buy stock for stock prices with the oil. But if you buy in with oil, they're going to want you to be accredited, and accredited means you need to be knowledgeable and they have a few $100,000 to buy in. And then it's going to be like a 10 or 15-year contract, so you're not going to get your money right back. If you do it with an ETF, you can buy into oil stocks and leave your money there till you feel like taking your money out. And when you feel like taking your money out, your money is out. You can buy in today and sell next week, and it's not going to mess with your profits as long as you buy low, sell high. So I would tell you right now, while people are being pissed off about oil and oil is being devalued in Russia and redirected from other areas, the oil stock market is fluctuating. And that is what today's podcast is supposed to be discussing, is how do you make money about this situation? So when you said, you hit the nail on the head. Imagine how much the oil rate is going to go down because nobody's buying from Russia. Michael said, many are people consistent and commodity. What is it? Consistent a commodity? People are going to be treated like a commodity. That's going to happen. People are going to be treated like a commodity. But yeah, special shout out to Gurez Hisaria. Special shout out to him. I love the way he was able to come and bring us a lot of facts and a lot of information. Highly intelligent individual. I greatly appreciate people like that coming to the show. I hope he keeps coming back to the show and providing a lot more insight to all the topics that we have going forward, because we're always talking about ways that you can make money for you. Now, the second option is to negotiate. This is what India will be able to experience, because the 21-day window before the additional 25% tariff takes effect is clear. And if aggressive uh, in initiatives to talk are not met, reports suggest that the U.S. negotiators may visit India around August 25th, indicating that a channel for dialogue exists. So between the 25th and the 1st, y'all don't have, when they get on the plane, this discussion is over. A negotiated settlement could de escalate the crisis. The challenge, however, is the price of a deal. The Trump administration wants greater market access for U.S. goods, a reduction in India's own tariffs, and a significant shift in India's policies towards Russia. Agreeing to these terms under duress could be seen as a uh, capitulation, undermining India's principle of strategic autonomy. Love the good night. Yeah, you be tapping out at the same time of night. You got to get you some Z's. I'm gonna be here for a while because we still got we only hit 1/3 of the information today. This is just a part about Russia. The next segment that we're going to be talking about real soon. I told you we had to start early because we got a lot to talk about today. The next segment we're going to be talking about is that big ass earthquake that happened. So we're going to be talking about that too. And we still have, for those that are still watching us, we're still going to be talking about TikTok and its effects on content creators. Now, the third, perhaps most strategically important option is to pivot, which is what was mentioned earlier by Park. This crisis is a brutal reminder of its risks of relying on a single export market. The long term response could be concerted. Aggressive push to diversify India's trade relations could be the outcome. This would mean fast tracking free trade agreements, that are currently under negotiation with partners like the United Kingdom and the European Union. It could also mean deepening economic ties with other trading blocs. The goal would be to build a more resilient export economy that isn't hostage to the political whims of any single nation. And this is a long term strategy, but it may be the most prudent path to ensuring India's economic security. Finally, India could pursue a mix of these strategies, negotiating while preparing retaliatory measures and accelerating trade diversifications. This would allow it to keep its options open, showing a willingness to talk while also demonstrating that it can't be pushed around. The path India chooses will have profound implications, testing the resolve of its leadership and the resilience of its economy. Now, let's swing over to that earthquake. We had a fan come on to the show a few weeks ago, and I told you guys that I was going to look into it and then I was going to cover it. So I never give you late breaking. It just happened a couple of hours ago, so that when you ask me a question, I don't know the answer to it. Yeah, I got the answers. My man came up and asked me, spur of the moment, what did I think about that 8.8 mega earthquake that happened in Hawaii? That's what he asked me. And I said, I didn't hear nothing about Hawaii getting hit by an earthquake. And then I asked him, why would I in Florida be complaining about a Hawaii earthquake? He didn't want to hear that. He walked away. But I told him, I guarantee you, I'm going to cover it. Now I'm covering it. An 8.8 mega quake tears through the seafloor of the coast of Russia, not Hawaii, sparking tsunami warnings across the entire Pacific Ocean. For hours, not days, the world watched as potentially catastrophic waves raced towards Hawaii. Completely different than what we were talking about on the podcast when that left field question came out. Evacuation orders were sent out. Panic started to spread. So, what really happened when the tsunami was supposed to hit? The answer isn't what you guys think. It all started with a shudder in a remote, frigid corner of the world, but today, a tremor in one ocean can easily become a terror for another. So on July 29th, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This was a couple weeks ago, 2025, the Earth's crust unleashed a staggering burst of energy. What followed was a wave of fear that traveled even faster than the wave of water itself. And the target at the center of all of this anxiety was the Hawaiian Islands. For hours, every news channel, every single media feed was dominated by one question: was Hawaii about to face a catastrophe? And that's why I think his name was Chad jumped into the comment section and asked me if I knew what was going on with Hawaii. No, because it wasn't about to cost me any money. What's happening in India is about to cost some money. What's happening in Russia is about to cost some money. What's still happening in Ukraine is about to cost some money. That's what we're talking about. But meanwhile, sirens blared across the islands. Hawaii's or highways jammed with people fleeing the coast. This was almost like Hurricane Katrina, and the world just watched and waited. The warnings were dire and the predictions were chilling. An invisible enemy was racing across thousands of miles of open ocean, set to arrive at a precise time. This is the story of that day. A day of panic, one whole day of panic, preparation, and ultimately a surprising truth. So, we're going to break down exactly what happened so that you guys can know. Because here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we only talk about the facts. We bring you guys the truth, and we do not devalue anybody else's opinion about facts. But when they start throwing up their opinions, that's when we start to argue. Now, we're going to expose the reality behind the global panic. Was the threat real? Was the evacuation an overreaction? And most importantly, did Hawaii even get hit? To understand the fear, you have to understand the force that caused it. Because at 11:24 p.m., uh, coordinated universal time on January 29th, a magnitude of 8.8 earthquake ripped through the seafloor of Russia, Kamchatka Peninsula. Hard to say. Kamchatka Peninsula, right? Now, the 8.8 might not sound like much, but on the logarithmic Richter scale, it represents almost unimaginable release of energy. This wasn't just a big earthquake, it was a monster. So it was the most powerful seismic event on the planet since the devastating 2011 Japan quake and tied for the sixth strongest ever recorded by modern seismographs. The quake happened on the Kuril Kamchatka Trench. So the Kuril Kamchatka Trench, a massive subduction zone where the Pacific plate is violently grinding its way under a North American plate. This is the planet's engine for creating megathrust earthquakes, the most powerful type in the world. Instead of the ground just shaking side to side, a massive section of the seafloor is thrust upward, displacing a mind-boggling volume of water. So like a large chunk of earth comes up, almost like land forming. It's like a pimple coming out of your face, and when it happens, it pushes all the water swiftly out of its way. It's like punching the ocean from below. This single violent event didn't just shake the earth, it lifted a column of water that set in motion the very thing that seismologists and coastal communities fear most, which is a trans Pacific tsunami. So within minutes of the quake, the globe defense system kicked into gear at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, or PTWC, in Hawaii. Computer systems lit up. Data from seismographs was fed into complex models, and the conclusion was instantaneous and terrifying. The quake was powerful enough, shallow enough, and the right type to generate a dangerous ocean wide tsunami just 10 minutes after the quake. The first bulletin went out. A tsunami threat message for the coasts of Russia and Japan. First guys to get notified. But that was just a start. The system is designed to be cautious. So as the initial data was refined, the warning spread. Soon, the entire Pacific Rim was on alert. The US West Coast, from California to Alaska, was put under advisory. Nations in South America issued their own warnings, and island nations across the vast Pacific, such as Fiji, Tonga, and French Peninsula, started activating their emergency plans. A map of the Pacific Ocean turned into a web of alerts, with circles showing the tsunami's traveling time. He said, should I start smoking cigarettes? I usually just take nicotine patches, but don't like myself and want to start cigarettes. Okay, so I'm going to be real with you. It's not a good idea for you to smoke cigarettes or use nicotine patches because that's just a waste of money. Um, Outside of entertainment, you have to understand why do you use nicotine patches and what would poise you to switch over to cigarettes because the nicotine patches are clearly not effective enough. Um, Ideally, to people with bad nerves or high levels of stress, uses nicotine as a blocker of nervous reactions, which causes them to become addicted to that nicotine and then start developing a habit of excessive smoking and potentially substitute that with stronger content that they would smoke because the body builds up an immune system to anything that's being done excessively. So if you address the core problem, which is the source of your stress or the source of your anxiety, then you would no longer have the desire for the nicotine patches, and then you would also no longer have the desire for the cigarettes. So instead of switching from nicotine patches or increasing the quantity of nicotine that you consume by adding more patches, which could be catastrophic to your health and potentially cause you to have a cardiac arrest, or worse off, switching over to cigarettes or switching over to vape, where vape actually causes crystallization in your lungs because the fluids in the nicotine mixes with the hydrogen atoms from the batteries that provides the mist, and then that combines with the carbon monoxide that when you're inhaling this into your lungs, and then you have those crystals in your lungs which cannot be removed. So now you're looking at having a lung transplant more sooner than what you would if you were to smoke cigarettes for 70 years of your life, because one puff of a hookah or a vape is equivalent to like 50 to 75 cigarettes. So if you vape on a regular basis, you're like expediting your death way faster. If you're chiefing on hookahs, you're expediting your death way faster. If you're smoking cigarettes over using nicotine, the carbon monoxide and asphyxiation is going to be expediting because it's the what's developing the cancer in your lungs is not just the chemical intake. It's the fact that you're burning your esophagus with the heat as you inhale, which is one reasons why you end up not having a throat and then not having a voice. So do you really want to waste money on nicotine and cigarettes, or do you want to invest in tobacco companies and make you a bunch of money so that you can spend money on profits from other people making bad choices and then live a life with less stress so that you would not need nicotine or cigarettes and not be broke at the same time, because self-medicating negatively impacts your profit margin too, because you're wasting money because you're broke. You're stressing because you're broke and wasting money on something to make you stop feeling the pain of being broke instead of investing your money into something that will make you less broke so you will feel less pain about being less broke. Wouldn't that make more sense? I mean, if you can make it make more sense to me, let me know. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think that you would do better investing in the major tobacco companies instead of buying the tobacco product, because they're always going to make money. They make money on two different sides. They make money off of selling the product, and then they make money off of promoting the campaigns against buying it, because rebels will buy the cigarettes because truth commercials say don't do it. Anything that somebody says is bad for you, somebody's going to invest in going to get it. Anything that is prohibited by the government, somebody is going to try to get their hands on it. So if there's a market for it and you can invest in that market, why not invest in somebody else's bad habits and not develop your own? How about that? That's like the best advice that I can get, besides you getting therapy and fixing the emotional disposition that you have that's causing you to have the anxiety, stress, and nervousness that compels you to deal with the nicotine in the first place. So if you're not going to face your problems, invest in somebody else's. Y'all like and subscribe as y'all come through here, because I've got the kind of advice that nobody else is going to give you. It is not built on emotional security. It is not built on empathy in any way, and it shows no mercy and no sympathy towards an individual's position. It is logic and logic and reason is fair and rational and uniform. You will not provide me with a scenario that will make me recant my previous statement. I will stand on every word that I say because this is facts. And anybody who disagrees, by all means, come into the comment section and show me some facts that shows me that I'm wrong. We've had one gentleman, widely intelligent, come onto the channel with some information today. And not only did he prove his facts that were in fact facts up until June, I was able to provide him with more relevant information that from July until now, from June until now, that gave him more insight on his position. Not saying that he was wrong, it's just that his information stopped in June and my information continued to August. But I strongly appreciate his very educational position. Now, with that tsunami, it looked like a ripple in a pond, except this ripple was carrying devastating energy. And at the heart of this target was supposed to be Hawaii. The system had worked. It detected the threat and sounded the alarm. Now it was a race against the clock. So for people of Hawaii, the threat was no longer theoretical. At 2:45 p.m. local time, the statewide sirens began their haunting wails. It's a sound every resident knows and dreads. It means a tsunami isn't just possible, it's expected. The National Weather Service issued a formal tsunami warning and the highest levels of alert, signifying that the dangerous wave was on its way. Suddenly, the laid back rhythm of the island life was shattered. If you are in a coastal area, move inland and to higher ground immediately, Governor Josh Green urged in a public address. He also stated, do not wait. As soon as he said that, chaos erupted. Tourists and residents scrambled to evacuate. On Oahu, the H1 freeway near Waikiki became a parking lot, backed up for miles as people fled the coast during rush hour. Gas stations were swamped. On Maui, residents shared videos of sirens blaring against otherwise clear blue skies, a surreal and terrifying sight, which led to people watching that on social media and assuming that the earthquake in Russia actually was an earthquake in Hawaii. But it wasn't an earthquake in Hawaii. It was a tsunami headed to Hawaii because of the earthquake in Russia. And they came to my podcast with the information. And here I am to provide you with clarity. Make sure that y'all like and subscribe because the facts only come from this channel. Emergency shelters opened and quickly filled up. All of Maui buses services were stopped, and flights out of Maui main airport were grounded for the night. Authorities weren't talking any chances. They weren't taking any chances. They weren't talking about chances. They weren't doing any hypotheticals, even shutting off water valves in coastal areas to prevent damage. They were pulling out all the stops for protection. For several tense hours, there was a real sense of fear. All anyone could do was get to high ground and wait. So, what exactly was everyone waiting for? A tsunami in the deep ocean is a strange beast. It's not like a typical wind driven wave you see at the beach. A tsunami is an entire column of water from the sea floor to the surface, moving at once. Out in the deep Pacific, it travels at an incredible speed, often over 500 miles per hour, as fast as a commercial jet. But you wouldn't even notice it if you were on a ship. Its a wave height in the deep ocean might only be a few feet spread out over hundreds of miles. The real danger is what happens when all that energy reaches the shore. As the sea floor gets shallower, the wave's forward momentum has nowhere to go but up. The wave slows down, but its height grows exponentially. A 3-foot wave in the deep ocean can transform into a 30 or 50 or even 100-foot wall of water. And it isn't a single breaking wave, it's more like a rapidly rising tide or a series of powerful surges that can last for hours, pushing inland with unbelievable force. This isn't why scientists at the PTWC were so concerned. Their models showed this immense energy now slowing down and building up as it approached the Hawaiian um, arch- archipelago. Hard to pronounce. Archipelago. The physics were undeniable. Before the wave reached Hawaii, first hit the near earthquake source, giving a terrifying preview of their power. So on Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula and the Kuril Islands, the tsunami hit hard. Waves reached heights of 16 to 20 feet, flooding port cities and washing fish boats out to sea. In a few areas, the local geography amplified the effects, with one island reporting a run up height, how far the water surged inland, of a staggering 62 feet. A state of emergency was declared. Timely evacuations prevented mass casualties, but there was significant damage to port facilities. Next up was Japan. With that memory of the 2011 tsunami, where you can see movies about that on Netflix, seared into the national consensus and their consciousness, the country took no chance. Evacuation orders were issued for nearly 2 million people because you know there are 4 people in Asia for every one person in America. There's a lot of people over there. The tsunami arrived, but its power had faded a bit over the journey. So the waves that reached Japan were about 3 feet high. While this caused some minor flooding, the country's robust coastal defenses prevented any major damage. So these first impacts confirmed two things. First, the tsunami was real and powerful, and second, its energy wasn't uniform. Now, all eyes turn to the east, to Hawaii. The predicted arrival time for the first wave in Hawaii was about 7:17 p.m. local time. As the sun began to set, a incredible tension settled over the island. The evacuations were done, the coastlines were eerily quiet, and all that was left was to watch the sea level gauges. News channels carried live feeds of empty beaches, with reporters speaking in hushed, nervous tones, as if being quiet is going to stop this water from washing your behind away. You standing in the danger zone doing a late breaking story. You and the cameraman gonna get washed away. Talking in a hushed tone is not gonna stop that. Then the first reporter came in with the wave that had arrived. In Hilo on the Big Island, a gauge record, they recorded this height as 4.9 feet. So this is one of the first heights. In Kalulu and Maui, the highest wave in the state was recorded at 5.7 feet. In the other areas, the surges were smaller, around 3 to 4 feet. For hours, a series of these pulses moved through harbors and against the shoreline. So understand, I'm about 5'6". So the 4.9 foot wave would have been about right here. I would have been gone. The other one that was 5.7 feet, that wave was about an inch taller than me. I would have been gone. Now the other two that was 3 to 4 feet, my dog would have been washed away, but I might have would have been able to hold on to something. So you got to understand these waves were pretty big, and they kept coming in. You know how when the tide comes in at night, it washes. Everybody who's ever been to a beach sees it. The tide will come in and it'll go back out. It'll come in. It'll go back out. And it'll keep doing that. Well, that's what was going on with the tsunami for hours. Because a series of these pulses moved through the harbors and against the shoreline, like I just said. But the catastrophic wall of water everyone feared never showed up. that 65-foot wall of water that we thought was going to happen and wash the whole island away, the Sodom and Gomorrah purge that was supposed to occur that never happened. Yeah, there was some minor flooding in low-lying parking lots and boat harbors, but the currents were strong and dangerous. However, there was no widespread destruction. No buildings were swept away. Most importantly, there were zero injuries and zero fatalities reported in Hawaii. I can't think of the last time America had a hard snow and didn't have 5 people die. So, did Hawaii get hit? The answer is yes. Not by an earthquake, by a tsunami. But the impact was drastically less severe than the warning suggested. But it's better to be safe than sorry. The tsunami was real. It crossed the Pacific and it was detected on Hawaii shores. But for a variety of complex reasons, the devastating power that struck Russia just wasn't delivered to Hawaii. By midnight, the warning was downgraded to an advisory, and by the next afternoon, officials gave the all clear. As the all clear was given, a collective sign of relief echoed across the islands. The nightmare scenario had been avoided, but relief quickly gave way to a necessary conversation. Was the threat overhyped? Was the mass evacuation an overreaction? Some people began to worry about warning fatigue. The idea that if every warning leads to a non event, people might not take the next one seriously. It's a tough challenge for emergency managers. On one hand, you have scientific models predicting a disaster. Ignoring that would be irresponsible. On the other, crying wolf too many times can erode public trust. Honolulu's mayor, Rick uh, Bangladori, had a firm response, stating, please take this very seriously and don't go down to the beach. Don't be looking at the waves. Experts emphasize that it's always better to be safe than sorry, as I said a while back. A tsunami's impact is notoriously difficult to predict perfectly. Undersea geography can unexpectedly focus wave energy on one area while sparing another. You just don't know the exact outcome until the waves arrive. And once you see the wave, it is too late because the size of the wave will travel at 500 miles an hour faster than your ass can run at 15 or 20 miles an hour for 6 or 7 seconds. Gridlock traffic, you're not driving that far. You will be washed away in seconds of watching that wall come your way. The official made their choice based on the best science they had, not to mention observing what the hell happened to Russia by the exact same tsunami that was headed towards Hawaii. Prioritizing human life over everything else was their focus. They faced the choice between a massive inconvenience and a potential mass casualty event. They chose inconvenience, and I agree with them. In the end, the 2025 Kamchatka tsunami event wasn't a story of disaster for Hawaii. It was one for Russia, not for Hawaii. Instead, it became one of the most valuable real world stress tests of the entire warning system. It was basically a multi-billion-dollar energy emergency drill, courtesy of Mother Nature. And the event proved that the Pacific tsunami warning system works exceptionally well. A quake on one side of the ocean can be detected, analyzed, and a warning can be issued to the other side of the ocean within hours with plenty of time to spare. Now, the response in Hawaii highlighted both strengths and weaknesses. The ability to sound the alarms was effective, But the gridlock on the roads showed that evacuation logistics, especially in the dense areas like Honolulu, are still a huge challenge, which gives them room to rectify this. The event also proved how important it is to be clear with the public about the uncertainty in forecasting to fight that warning fatigue. Scientists and emergency planners are now poring over all of the data from this event. Every piece of information will be used to refine the model and improve evacuation plans for the next time, because there will always be a next time. If you understand that something like this happened in 2011 and we're in 2025, that was 14 years ago. You can imagine that if it's going to happen again in the next 14 years, it'll be 2039, but it'll happen again, which likely to happen inside of our lifetime, because everyone knows there will always be a next time. This wasn't a false alarm, it was a critical lesson learned without devastating price tags, because no casualties in Japan, no casualties in Hawaii. Now, for everybody who's looking to make money for them, that's still watching the channel, make sure y'all like and subscribe, because we're now about to get into that TikTok app, because I told y'all we was going to cover that TikTok app. All right. If you're watching us from Twitch or Twitter, make sure that you guys take the time to hit that follow button on Twitch or Twitter. Take time to come over to the YouTube app, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube app, and then hit the notification bell on all of the episodes you see coming up, so that you can be notified exactly when we go live. Now, the app that you guys scroll through every day, the one with your memories, your followers, podcasters, your whole online world has an expiration date. And no, this isn't just a rumor. It's the result of a plan that's already in motion. It's set to completely change social media in the United States. We're talking about a total replacement of the TikTok app as you know it. For the 170 million of you in the United States, this isn't an update you can just skip over. It's a mandatory move, a forced evolution. So anybody who owns a TikTok app that values their account, you need to hang tight with me for the next 40 minutes, because I'm going to not only tell you about all the stuff that's happening with the TikTok app, I'm also going to show you how to invest in it. The clock is ticking, and if you don't know what's happening, you could get left behind. The TikTok app on your phone right now is scheduled to be deleted by March 2026. That's not a maybe. There is a plan to move all 170 million American users to a brand new app. In tonight's show, we're going to break down the planned September 5th launch of what has been called M2, and telling you exactly what you need to do to make sure your account and all of your content are safe. Now, this and that was streaming off of TikTok until the ban. We stopped streaming off of TikTok because we weren't sure if that platform would continue under Donald Trump's authority. And we were rightfully smart about that, because it will not continue to exist, not the TikTok that you have today. So we're going to be making that change, and we're telling you guys how to make that change as well. We'll cover the timeline, the political drama that goes with this and leading up to where we are right now, and what this new American-owned TikTok app will actually be like. This is one of the biggest shakeups in social media history, and it's happening right now. So what does this actually mean for you? The app icon on your phone, the one you probably tap way too many times in a day, is planned to stop working for everyone in the United States by March of 2026. Don't forget that. It will be deliberately disabled Reports indicate that on September 5th, which is about 2.5 weeks from now, September 5th, 2025, the current TikTok app, internally codenamed M, will be taken off US app stores like Apple and Google. On that same day, a new, totally separate app, currently known as M2, is scheduled to be released. This isn't a simple update, it's a huge migration for the entire platform. It's an unprecedented move for an app this big. Imagine being told you have to move out of your house. There's a new one down the street that looks pretty similar, but you still have to pack everything you own, move it all, and just hope nothing gets broken or lost along the way. That's the scale of what we're talking about for 170 million Americans. The core of the strategy is a 6-month transition from September 5th to 2025 to March of 2026. Users will be pushed and heavily encouraged to download the new M2 app and link their accounts. The old app will keep working during this time to prevent total chaos and give everyone from casual scrollers to huge creators who've built careers on the platform time to make the switch. But then March 2026 hits and the lights go out on the old app in the US for good. And you know that this is no joke because when the ban went into effect the day that Donald Trump got into office, the app shut down for 24 hours. China respects America's laws. You say don't stream in my country, or you tell me not to stream in your country, I'm not streaming in your country. So China will shut down March of 2026. If Trump picks a day at midnight, the app will be done that day. You will be in the middle of something and the app will stop functioning for you because China don't play no games with following the rules. So I want you guys to understand this. If you haven't moved over by then, you risk losing your entire account, your videos, your drafts, everything. Nothing is recoverable. You're going to have to start from scratch. The stakes couldn't be higher. So this does not just happen overnight. It's a climax of a year-long saga of political tension and national security fears, which is what led to the massive tariffs to China in April, which led to the massive market shifts in April, which led to all the money that me and Steven was making over the last 3 months. Because when we seen this happen, and I was telling y'all what y'all needed to do, and we started taking advantage of it to the best of our ability. And ain't nobody followed us. They missed out on the money. The idea of banning or forcing a sale of TikTok has been the headline for a while now. The whole thing really kicked into high gear back in 2020 when the Trump administration first called TikTok's Chinese ownership a potential national security threat. And that started a firestorm of legal and political battles. Fast forward through the years of back and forth, and we landed on the bill that set all this in motion. The Protecting Americans from Foreign Advisory Controlled Applications Act passed with a huge support in Congress and signed into law on April 24th of 2024 when Biden was still in office. This act was a direct ultimatum. It explicitly named ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, and gives it a clear choice: sell its US operations to America approved to an American approved company or get completely banned from app stores and web hosting in the United States. Keep in mind, ByteDance also owns Clappers, if you haven't heard. So this is going to set a snowball for individuals that are swinging on Clappers. The original deadline was January 19th, 2025, and after a series of extensions and intense negotiations, the new enforcement deadline is now September 17th. This law is the reason for everything we're seeing. It's why ByteDance is being forced to create a new US only entity, and why you'll soon have to download a whole new app. It's an attempt to surgically separate the American version of TikTok from its Chinese parent company once and for all. This long, winding road has led us straight here to the birth of M2 and the end of TikTok as we've known it. So, why go through all this trouble? Why force a company to sell and orchestrate this massive user migration? According to the United States government, it comes down to two big worries: data security and potential for foreign manipulation. For me, I observed it as a massive control of capital gains, because why the heck is China making more money off of 170 million Americans than the United States? So instead, since it is a digital platform that can't be taxed by the United States government, said, nah, I want to cut it at that market. You have a large, but because we have 368 or 370 million Americans in the United States. And if 170 million Americans are using a platform, that's almost half, if not more than half, of the United States is using a platform. That is a massive market that the United States has no control over, because it is digitally coming into the United States, so it doesn't get hit by a tariff. That is my observation as to why this happened. But from the political standpoint, we're going to talk about first your data. Like every social media app, TikTok collects a ton of user data, what you watch, your location, and even biometrics information from your face. The fear comes from ByteDance being based in China, where national security laws could compel companies to hand over data. Lawmakers argue this is a huge risk, worrying that the personal data of millions of Americans could be associated or and accessed by Chinese government, even though TikTok has repeatedly said it stores US user data separately and would never hand it over. That what if was powerful enough to drive new laws. The second concern is the algorithm. TikTok's For You page is one of the most powerful content engines ever built. It knows what you like, what makes you mad, and what you'll share. That algorithm is so complicated that if I say two or three political words during a live podcast, it will automatically transition my platform to a topic sensitive, restricted platform that is less seen by the average user. It's serious. The fear is that this algorithm could be tweaked to serve foreign interests, to amplify certain political ideas, suppress others, or even influence elections. I'm not going to go into that because we can do enough of that on our own. We don't need, there is no political power in the United States running for office that China supports. When I start seeing American Chinese individuals where they are born in America but have Chinese descendants running for office, then I can believe that. But as it stands right now, good old fashioned, born in America, 30 generations of American blood running for office with their own political agendas, being backed by dark money and manipulated by the billionaires that be. I can't see that happening. To amplify certain political ideas, suppress others, or influence elections. That's what they're saying. Now, the US government isn't willing to risk that, though. This is why the sale is more than just a financial deal, even though it is primarily a financial deal. It is also a technical one. The goal with the M2 app is to create a version of TikTok that runs on completely separate infrastructure, a digital wall, if you will. The plan is for the new US owned TikTok to keep all American user database on US soil, likely managed by American companies such as Oracle, which has been deep in the negotiations. More importantly, The new app is expected to run on its own recommendation algorithm, which is not the same algorithm that was pushed by China, completely cut off from ByteDance's global system. The M2 project is a radical attempt to solve the national security puzzle. Keep the app people love, but cut the ties that lawmakers see as a threat. All right. Now, let's talk about the solution on the table, the M2 app, because this is the change that you'll actually see on your phone. First, the name M2 is just an internal code name. It's very unlikely the app you download will be actually called M2. We expect it to just be called TikTok or the new TikTok or something related to TikTok with an equivalent logo that you can recognize. They might shift the logo the way Elon Musk changed Twitter to Twitter to he changed it from Twitter to X. But because my generation existed on Twitter, it's known as Twitter X, and the little blue bird was replaced with a big black X. And something similar might happen to the TikTok app where when you type TikTok into the Google Play Store, the new version will show up. But it will be a brand new app in the app stores. You won't just be updating, you'll be downloading a fresh application. Sources say this is necessary to get around App Store policies that make it tough to have different regional versions under one listings. The launch is reportedly planned for September 5th. On that day, the new US version of the app is expected to be ready for download, while the old version will be removed from US app stores so no new American user can get it. If it's already on your phone and you go and Google TikTok on September 5th, whatever app is up there should clearly say download, not update, not open, download, because you don't have it yet. So, what happens when you open the M2 app? The goal is to make the move feel seamless. You'll likely be prompted to log in with your current account details from your already accessible TikTok app. So before September 5th, I recommend for anybody who does an automatic login, for anybody who uses the biometrics to log in, for anybody who has their username and password saved on their Google browser and they log in using their Google profile, make sure that you update your username and password right now before September 5th so that when this is a requirement, you can easily transition over. Because from there, the system is supposed to be designed to pull your whole account over, your username, your profile, your followers, and all of your published videos. Doesn't mean that anything that you had in the drafts is going to come over, and it doesn't mean that anything that you have yet to publish has come over. So that also means that anything that you haven't published, you might want to make sure that you download it to your computer now so that after this happens, you're capable of releasing it. If you don't release it now, download it to your computer so that you have it for release. The plan is explicitly designed to preserve your content. So this process involves migrating all that data to a new US-based cloud infrastructure, which reports suggest will be heavily managed by Oracle, which if let's do this real quick because I didn't even come down this path. I need to go down this path real quick. Um, y'all know that I tell y'all because you can't just run over there and just grab. Is that how you spell? Yeah, you can't just run over there and just grab stock in TikTok because TikTok is privately owned, and you know that when somebody buys something or sells something, their stocks change, right? So here, what I'm going to do real quick. This is something that I didn't even think about until just now because I created this uh last week when I said I was going to do this Oracle stock. and ticker. I want you guys to be able to get a glimpse because now that I think about it, which is very interesting. If you since Oracle is supposed to be the one buying TikTok, if you go buy you some Oracle stock, you're going to see a shit ton of profits off of the transition of TikTok ownership. You're going to see a ton of profits off of any profits that Oracle gets off of the immediate sales of TikTok until you see TikTok be publicly traded. Since Oracle is going to be the parent company of TikTok, you should see Oracle uh, do the dance that you want your money to do. All right. So what I want to do, the Oracle, the Oracle Corporation, ooh, they are on the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange. And let me see if I can grab this for you guys. We're dealing with some technical issues. I'm going to grab this for you guys. I'm going to put it into the comment section so that you guys can take a look at it. The Oracle potential purchaser of TikTok. We're going to put this right here for you guys. And then we're going to give it to you guys over here on Twitter as well. And how will this stock be affected by the purchase of TikTok? I want you guys to see this real quick, because if you get this one, the potential purchase or partnership of TikTok's U.S. operations by Oracle introduced by both significant risks and opportunities for Oracle stocks. So initially, reports of Oracle's entire entering advanced talks of acquiring or managing TikTok US-based businesses causes a sharp decline on Oracle stock by about 3%, reflecting investors' concern over regulatory scrutiny, political valuation, and ongoing involvement of ByteDance, which is TikTok's current owner. However, if Oracle finalizes a deal to host or own TikTok's US operations, analysts see possible upsides for the stock benefit, including enhanced reputation as a leader in data scrutiny, security, and cloud service, a major new cloud customer in TikTok, further boosting Oracle's cloud infrastructure revenue and confidence among investors if Oracle demonstrates regulatory compliance and secures government approvals. The market response remains volatile as the deal is subject to high uncertainty from regulatory authorities, especially concerning data security and US China relations. So, if the acquisition or partnership is approved, the Oracle successful position itself as TikTok's exclusive US cloud provider, and analysts predict significant new revenue streams and growth momentum for Oracle's cloud business. If TikTok were banned or Oracle failed to secure the contract, it could negatively impact Oracle's future cloud revenue projections. So short-term stocks may remain volatile, reacting to news and regulatory developments, but long-term deal could result in substantial cloud revenue gains and a stronger market position if executed successfully and government hurdles are cleared. So, with that being said, if you grab Oracle stock now and roll the dice on Oracle being the big dog in cloud source data for 170 millions and millions of Americans using the new TikTok app. With that 3% dip right now, you will see a substantial profit on your gains. So if you're not investing in the TikTok app after the TikTok app becomes publicly traded on the US stock market, you're investing in Oracle today so that you can profit off of Oracle in October. That's the deal. I told you guys I'm going to tell you how to make money off of the way life changes in the United States. I'm going to tell you how to make money off of the way things change with uh, uh, trade practices across different countries. Now, the biggest change that we're going to see will be the complete separation from global TikTok world to the M2 app being on its own island. Your data will be stored and governed in the United States. The content policies and the algorithm will be managed by a new US based ownership group. And that's the whole point. Who will own it, right? The final details are still being worked out, but the group of US investors, potentially including the firms like Oracle, would form a new American company to run TikTok's US operations. ByteDance would likely keep a small stake with no operational control, which means that they're still going to make profits off of the US market, because the requirement to sell TikTok required that the United States had 50% or more controlling share of TikTok in the US market. So even if the United States has 51%, where right now, before the sale, they have 0%. So even if they had 51% ownership, they get 51% of the profits. TikTok, owned by ByteDance, keeps the other 49% and still keeps 100% of their profits from around the world. Fantastic deal, because in return, the United States took over 100% tariffs off of the 145% that was once sitting there in April, May, and June. Nevertheless, the whole deal depends on a huge thing: getting approval from the Chinese government, which has said it might not approve the sale if its algorithm is involved. And that's why the United States has to have its own algorithm. That adds a thick layer of uncertainty to everything. But since the United States is supposed to be creating their own algorithm and having it ready by September 5th, that's less likely to be a foundational issue right now. So for you, those of us that use the app, the goal is for the app to look and feel almost identical to the original. The interface, the tools, the For You page, they want it to feel familiar. But behind the scenes, it's a completely different app. It's like the difference between buying a Mustang and a Camaro. They look the same, potentially the same color. If you catch them 2 years apart, they could be completely identical. It's just that the mechanics are completely different. One has more control with power steering and handling, and one has more grip with the drivetrain and torque. And the United States version is built to satisfy US laws. Now, this transition will affect everyone from casual users to the creator who built a business on the platform. The biggest fear for many is loss, the idea of losing years of content and hard earned community, or a source of income. That is also equally terrifying. Me, myself, as an up and coming content creator with a very, very small followership, I found it to be a financial deficit to invest in a platform that would no longer exist by the end of this year, where all of the money I invested to build up my platform would not benefit me or become fruitful. Now, with the transition, there is a future for investment, because once the new United States supported app comes out, I would safely be able to build a market on TikTok that would exist for generations to come. For most users, the main job will be simple: download the new app when it's out and follow the steps to migrate before March 26th deadline. The process should be easy. But a move this big always has risks. The best way to prepare is to make sure your login info is correct, and maybe use a third party tool to back up your most important videos just in case. Actually, I've got somewhere over here a 1 terabyte solid state hard drive that I use to back up all of my, no, 2 terabyte solid state hard drive that I use to back up all of my videos for this podcast. So when it is time to upload all of this information onto a new source, I have all of the original videos. For creators, the stakes are a little bit higher than the users who are just using it for the sake of the individuals who have yet to get monetized. A whole economy runs on TikTok, and any disruption hurts. The biggest question mark is the algorithm. Will the new US only algorithm be as good at marketing videos to go viral? That's TikTok's secret sauce. A new algorithm could mean a reset for the For You page, changing what kind of content gets seen. Some creators see this as a huge opportunity, such as me, because a second chance at going viral on a platform with slightly new rules allows smaller channels to be able to explode on the platform as soon as the platform comes out. Others who have millions of followers on that platform are worried it could tank their viewership and their income. The best advice for creators is to stay on top of the news and tell your audience about the change and urge them to follow you onto the new app right away, because it's also a smart time to be active on other platforms to spread out the risk. The same way I'm on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Hopefully, never to get banned off of YouTube the way Fresh and Frit did. But if it ever were to happen, if I'm able to maintain the existence of my podcast on other platforms, the lack of accessibility to a specific platform would still allow me to still function on other platforms. I put more attention towards following the rules, so I'm less likely to get banned, but you never know. Things happen. But diversification, even in content creation, is highly encouraged, just like in the stock market, just like in Bitcoin. Diversification. In the case of a loss, in the case of a dip, it is more effective for you to spread yourself across more locations to prevent yourself from experiencing capital loss by putting all your eggs in one basket that just so happened to have been dropped into a paper shredder. Now, this is a disruptive and scary moment for a lot of people. The promise is that once the move is over, things will settle into a new normal. The platform will be secured and the threat of a ban will be gone, and creators can invest in the US version of TikTok with more confidence. But getting from here to there is going to be a bumpy ride. So let's lay out the key dates that you guys need to know, because this roadmap is for TikTok's future in the US. Again, remember, first step is September 5th, 2025. This is the big date. The report launch date for the new US only TikTok app, code named M2. This is when the old app is expected to be delisted from US app stores and the official migration will begin. Next step is September 17th, 2025, and this is the current legal deadline for ByteDance to sell the uh, TikTok ownership under the Protecting Americans from Foreign Advisory Control Application Act. While the app migration starts before the sale, it's the date the business deal needs to be done unless other extensions happen. Typically, when it's about making money, Donald Trump will make another extension. If they're one step away from signing the contract, Donald Trump will make the extension. You want to make sure that you recognize, though, the first time somebody disagrees with Donald Trump, TikTok is banned. The old app and the new app, you might be able to access the new app, but it might not be called TikTok. You're gonna have to download an American version of TikTok, and whatever they call it, if it's not being owned by or sold by China to the US, whatever they call it, you're gonna have to use that because the one that you're using right now, that's gone because March of 2026, this is the last stage. This is going to be the end of the line for the old app that has existed for so many years. Some people were born and raised on this app, and it is now gone. Think of how we felt when McKinsey's went out of business. You understand? It marks the end of a 6 month migration period, and it marks the end of a legacy in the United States. After this date, the original TikTok app is set to be fully disabled in the United States, and this is the hardest deadline. There will not be a fluctuation on this deadline. Whether the deal is sold or not, TikTok will not exist in the United States come March of 2026. Keep in mind, while this is the reported plan, the situation is still evolving. And these dates could change depending on how negotiations go. But if there isn't a positive turnout, the ban is instantaneous. The same way lack of cooperation with the United States led to instant tariffs, led to instant bans, led to instant deportations, led to mandatory immigrations. Lack of cooperation, lack of good faith effort ends with extreme catastrophic change in an extremely short time. Now, as an American citizen, it is currently not straightforward for individual investors to directly invest in TikTok itself because TikTok is owned by a Chinese company named ByteDance, which is undergoing a mandated process to separate or sell its US operations due to national security laws. However, there are strong indicators that the US investors and private equity firms are actively involved in the potential deals to acquire stakes in TikTok or its US operations. Notably, large US private equity firms, Blackstone, is considering taking a small stake in TikTok as part of restructuring efforts to comply with the US requirements. Places Oracle and Blackstone are places where you can put your money. Let me give you this real quick because I didn't think about this before the show either. Uh, Blackstone stock and ticker. I want to I want to make sure that you guys have this. Blackstone stock and ticker also on the the New York Exchange. I want you guys to have these because if you're trying to invest, usually the billionaires tell you the people that are doing those seminars like, oh yeah, I can teach you how to trade in minutes. I can teach you how to do option trades in seconds. I can teach you how to make money for you, and blah 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 blah. And they give you all this bullshit. And long story short, they tell you one simple thing: put your money where your interests are. If you're a TikTok user, if you're a TikTok creator, if your actions and efforts revolves around utilizing TikTok, and TikTok is about to be sold, and two different companies are likely to have marginal shares, majority shares into the stock. Blackstone and Oracle. Buy stock in them right now before the sale because any dip that the market has had on Blackstone and Oracle because they decided they want to go mess with China will lead to the price of the stock being less than what it will be when TikTok is successful. If you buy stock into those companies, buy ETFs into those companies, and then after 170 million users get on that new app, the revenue in October will spike whatever stock shares you were able to afford to get. And even if that's a growth stock, not a cash stock, even if that's a growth stock, the fact is that you will have a growing stock option. Multiple, if you buy some in Oracle and some in Blackstone, you would have a growing stock option that will continue to improve as the TikTok app in the United States market continues to improve. I don't just talk about stuff. I don't just bitch about society, and I'm not a political activist. I tell you guys how money needs to move and how you need to move with the money. Okay? Life changes and it's not always in your favor, but when money starts moving, you need to move with the money. This is not about chasing the dragon. This is not about making money or having money dictate what you do in life. This is about what other people do in life dictates what you do with your money. That way, your money is making money for you. Because the more often that your money is making money for you, you put less effort into making money because you don't have to. Money's being made in your sleep. We already covered a show last week and the week before when we talked about how you can leverage the growth stocks for capital gain that you, well, not capital gain, but capital that you can leverage towards gaining assets so that you can benefit from the ownership of those stocks. We also talked about how you can take cash stocks and pay towards that leverage so that you can pay back that leverage without having to take money out of your own individual pocket. Everything that you need to go from working every day for somebody else to working for yourself or retiring off of everything and living off of your wealth is all right here on this podcast. All you guys got to do is like and subscribe and come back every day and we'll talk about it. Go back and watch some of the other shows that I've already put up there because we've been covering this for almost 2 years now. There's a lot of information on this channel. We've got so much information that we're one step away from competing with Google about information as far as wealth. Because I give you in the moment, right now, today, relevant information that will stop you from being broke and start leading you into the direction of being rich, or at least not poor. Now, notably, large U.S. private equity firms like Blackstone is considering taking the small stakes in TikTok, like I told you, and this is going to be restructuring the efforts to comply with the U.S. requirements. But other major U.S. investors, such as Oracle and Venture Capital Group, have also been linked with investment talks. So let me give you Investment Capital Group. I want you guys to have all of the guys that got their representatives in the talk. So that you know where you need to put your money at before this deal closes. Let's see. Hold on. We're gonna get venture capital groups investing in TikTok. I want you guys to see what's going on here. Now, who addressing Howitzer, General Atlantic. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Addressing Howitzer stands out as the key venture capitalist firm investing or looking to invest in TikTok. And then other investors reportedly involved or interested, including General Atlantic and Susquehanna International Group. These are private equities and investment firms rather than traditional venture capital groups. So they do not hold specific tickers. So the one that you would be able to invest in with less issue would be this one, Adressen. Let me give you this one. But even if you can't find that one in your investment platform, what you can find is Blackstone and Oracle. So if all else fails, get you some Blackstone and Oracle. Now, some proposals involve complex ownership structures with U.S. investors holding significant control to reduce Chinese ownership below the required legal limits of 50%. There is also interest and speculation about consortia involving wealthy individuals and companies potentially buying the U.S. operations or converting existing ByteDance shares into stakes in a new independent TikTok entity. If they're going to make these shares public, you'll then be able to see a TikTok stock, public share trading stock, on either Nasdaq or the New York trading platform. And once those tickers come out, which will be sometime after the 15th, once the sale has been made, once they make TikTok a publicly traded entity, then I'll be able to give you guys that ticker, and you guys will be able to start investing in TikTok. However, this process is still subject to regulatory approvals in the United States, and China has not yet resulted in a publicly available investment vehicle for ordinary American investors. So, regular American citizens cannot currently buy TikTok stock directly, as it is a privately held entity by ByteDance. Larger U.S. institutional investors and consortia are pursuing stakes in TikTok's U.S. operations, and a new independent U.S. based TikTok company with American investors may emerge, potentially allowing investments, but this is still in negotiations and not yet available. So you would have to invest in the investor so that you can get profits off of TikTok. Publicly trading or direct share purchasing by ordinary investors are not currently possible. So if you want to invest now, you would likely need to look instead at potential public companies involved in TikTok's infrastructure or related technology firms, since TikTok itself is not publicly traded or easily accessible for individual investors at this stage. So this information is based on recent reports and developments around TikTok's mandated US ownership restructuring as of mid 2025. Now, we've got a little bit more for you, because as of mid 2025, since ByteDance, the private Chinese company that owns TikTok, is also not publicly traded, this means individual Americans cannot buy ByteDance stock directly through regulatory stock exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. ByteDance remains privately held by a confirmed IPO timeline, largely due to regulatory scrutiny and geopolitical tensions. However, there's always a but. Certain accredited investors and institutional investors can access ByteDance shares via private equity markets or secondary marketplaces that specialize in pre-IPO shares. But this requires significant capital and equity. And it's also going to require eligibility. For the typical American investor looking for exposure to ByteDance, indirect routes exist right now, such as investing in publicly traded companies that hold stake in ByteDance, like SoftBank Group and Clauberg Kravis Roberts. I'm going to give you this right now, because when they sell TikTok, they're going to get a bunch of money. If you buy now before the sale, and then after they record the profits and the stock market spikes, you can sell and then take that money and put it into the American version. There are other technology firms that benefit from ByteDance's ecosystem as well. So the ticker symbol for Kohlberg Kravis and Co. is KKR. I'm going to give you that, and then I'm going to give this to Twitter X. I want you guys to have it. In the US, via an American Depository Receipt, ADR, SoftBank Group Corp trades as soft buy in the OTC market. So let me give you the other one. And I'm going to give this over to Twitter as well. And while I'm going over this, I also do want to give a special shout out to you guys that are watching us on Twitter. Steven, Trading Network and YOLO Cash Flow. I want to give you guys a special shout out because I mean these guys, they talk about stock trading on Twitter on a regular basis, and they come over to me so that they can listen, watch, and learn, even if they don't throw a shout out. So I want to give a shout out to them because I know you're watching. I see a handful of y'all over there writing stuff down right now. Um, Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. And for those of you that's watching us on Twitter and Twitch, hit that follow button. On the Tokyo Stock Exchange, it's primarily listed as 9984T. So for anybody who is trying to get this exact same company in Tokyo, there's a ticker for Tokyo. For SoftBank, that is the ticker for SoftBank. And I probably should have expressed that. But if you're watching the show, one thing you guys got to remember, you're watching the show live right now. But if you go back and replay the show, the post live show is going to have the entire comment section on live replay. So when you go back to this section, when we start talking about stocks and tickers and this, that, and the third, the comment section will also come back on the YouTube channel. This doesn't happen on Twitter or Twitch. This happens only on YouTube. So if you're watching it on Twitter or Twitch, you want to come back and be like, what was the name of that Tokyo ticker for SoftBank? You come to my channel, go to that portion, 3.5 hours in. And as soon as I started talking about SoftBank, start writing stuff down from the comment section. You got it. This is why we do this, because we help you guys make money. Now, OTC, I know I told y'all that SoftBank Group is trading as soft buy on the OTC market. I said that on the OTC market, where in Japan, in Tokyo, they're trading at 9984.T. But OTC means over the counter market in the United States. And this is decentralized trading systems where securities are bought and sold directly between parties without going through a formal exchange like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. Instead, transactions happen through broker deals and networks or electronic platforms. So the OTC market is divided into tiers based on financial standards and disclosure requirements, including OTCQX, which is the highest, OTCQB, and OTC Pink, which is the lowest, with minimal reporting requirements. And I just told you that it's supposed to be operating on OTC. The threat of a 50% tariff is more than just a policy decision that we've been discussing over the past 3.5 hours. It is a line drawn in the sand. It's going to be marking potential ends of an era defined by a growing U.S. Indian strategic partnership and the beginning of a new, far more conscious chapter. We understand that rumors about earthquakes in Hawaii are not as substantial as they or definitely not substantiated as they were claimed. So now you know Hawaii is safe, never got messed up. And now you know exactly where you could put your money to be involved in the TikTok trade. Whether you own companies that are buying or invest in companies that are buying, own or invest in companies that are selling, you can turn a profit somewhere and then redirect your capital somewhere else so that you can get the maximum quantity of benefits from the United States gaining ownership and possession of the TikTok platform in the United States market. And for anybody else who can't afford to invest in that, and you're just trying to get your hustle on with TikTok, now you know what you can do to move all of your stuff from its current position to its mandatorily required new position so that you do not fail to maintain possession of all of your stuff. Now, one of the things that I really want to make clear before we go any further, because the contract needs to be signed September 5th, accessibility to the TikTok app merger from the 5th to the 15th will be unconditional. I want to make that clear. If this deal falls through by the 15th, the TikTok app in China may not allow a transfer of data from their platform to the US platform. But whatever app that you're using that represents TikTok data is going to have to be used from the US platform, even if this deal fails. So if you are a content creator and you want to bankroll this transition, you need to be the first person in line, like a new release of Jordans. You need to be the first person in line, like a thirsty chick at an Usher concert. You need to be the first person in line, like the little girl that got peed on in the R. Kelly video. You need to be the first person in line to transition from the old TikTok app to whatever the fuck America's got to offer. Because come the 15th, if the contract ain't signed and TikTok is no longer allowing the transition of data to the US market, if that were to occur, whatever you got going on from the 16th going forward is lost information, because come March 6th, it is still not going to be accessible in the US market. And even if you operate on a VPN, you're not going to be able to receive any of the updates on the app. So the app will become difficult to manage and maintain even through a VPN until such time as you phase out. And I just want to point out that live streaming, I have experienced this before, that you will go dark. You can't be seen. If you're heard, you're lucky. And it is going to deter people from watching your podcast for a whole hour, because people who watch the podcast watch and listen more than they listen. Okay. Now, when it comes down to what happened between the United States and India, for decades, the narrative was for shared democratic values and uh, converging interests. And that narrative has now been shattered by the trade dispute that has morphed into geopolitical confrontations on a different side, separate from what's going on between China and the United States. The imminent fallout will be measured in lost exports, rattled industries, and economic hardships. But the long term consequences could be even more profound, potentially forcing a fundamental reevaluation of alliances and supply chains across the globe. So, what we are witnessing is not just a trade skirmish, it's a stress test of the global order and a clear signal that in this new era of great power competition, economics and geopolitics are two sides of the same coin. So the partnership that has long since stood between India and the United States is broken, and the trade wars have begun. With all the information that you guys have been able to hang out and watch today, you know this is the channel to go to, because we're going to be talking about every area that we can talk about on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, in order for you guys to know how to make money. I want to thank you guys for coming to the show, ladies. As long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So please, ladies, make it make sense. Fellas, I want y'all to know that we are a 72% male driven podcast from the male perspective, and all the information that I give you guys is determined to help you guys become higher value men, not only by increasing your finances, but also increasing and improving your decision making process in your personal life, because your personal life decisions negatively impact your money. The same way the gentleman was talking to me about switching from nicotine to cigarettes, and I told him how he could invest and make money instead of wasting money. And thus, likewise, the way that you work with your money and work to make money negatively impacts your availability and accessibility to have and enjoy your personal life. Stress from work conflicts with your ability to have peace at home, and stress at home interferes with your ability to think clearly at work. I want to fix both of those. So Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, we talk about ways to make and save and invest money. And on Wednesday specifically, we talk about how many countries we can do that in. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we talk about different ways for you to improve yourself and the people around you and how you interact with them. And Sundays is our questions and comments from the fans. So if you got any questions that you haven't asked throughout the week, you could always ask that on a Sunday. Because here on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we literally do talk about this, that, and everything in between. We talk about a lot of topics, but we try to focus on how the topic at hand actually impacts you directly. Because yes, I've had a lot of people come to the show and ask me ridiculous questions about completely insignificant scenarios. What's going on with famous people? What's going on with certain people like Diddy and the what you call it list and the Epstein's list and all this other things. And then I asked them the most important question: how does that affect you? Here on this and that, one of the core things that I focus on when I come up with a topic, because we have a different topic every day, and I do research on every single topic every day of the week. And I give you the most updated information on every topic that I cover. But every topic has a core theme. How does this affect you? How does it affect me? Because if it doesn't affect us, why the fuck are we wasting our time talking about it? If it negatively impacts your ability to make money, save money, take care of your family, if it impacts your standard of living, if it impacts your retirement, if it impacts your benefits, I'm going to talk about it. If it's going to impact your travel, if it's going to impact your money, I'm going to talk about it, because that is the common knowledge that we need to be focused on a day-to-day basis: is how does society impact us directly? Not how does one rich person negatively impact the other rich person on live video, like Housewives of New York. How does that impact us? They're rich, getting paid to be watched by us on TV. We need to be talking about how their financial decisions impact us. What companies are they buying from so we can invest in those stocks so that we can make profits when those rich people spend money? We need to be focusing on ways where we can no longer be poor. And I'm not going to say that you're poor just because you make $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000. You're poor because 90+% of your income goes towards your standard of living. And if you miss two paychecks, you're homeless. That's poor. I don't care if you're $200,000 a year. I don't care if you're 50,000 a year. If you can't take 6 months off from your job without losing your house, your car, if you can't take 2 months off of your job without losing your house and your car, you're poor. If you can't miss 2 weeks from work back to back, if you can't miss 3 weeks from work back to back without vacation pay, talking about 2, 3 weeks of unpaid leave from work, if you can't do that without risking losing your entire livelihood, you're poor. You're living from paycheck to paycheck because you have weekly pay, biweekly pay, and monthly pay. And nobody in America operates on less than monthly pay. So if you can't go a month and a half without pay and still be good, yo ass is poor. And I'm trying to help you stop being that way. I'm going to give you all the information that you need to change what you do with your money and redirect it into ways where you've got money coming in, even if you don't go out and get it. And that's my goal here on this and that. Now, one thing I tell you guys is that if y'all like what y'all got from me, y'all can always come back and throw me something. But unlike a seminar that's going to say, hey, this information is only for those who give. Fuck that. This information is free. You want it, you come get it. If you like what you got, you throw me something like the pastor at the church. You throw me something. But the 10% that you send to me is because I did something for you, as opposed to those other places where you give your 10% to them and all they did was make you feel good. I put money in your pocket. And that's one thing that's different. I tell everybody, think about your network. Your network is people that you benefit from that also benefit from you. So if I'm part of your network, you come to me, you give me 2 hours out of your day, you benefit from me because you're going to learn something that you're going to make money off of. You're going to make better decisions, which is going to save you money. Now, if you guys are going to be a good network for me, I'm going to benefit from you guys because somewhere along the lines, y'all going to throw some appreciation at a brother. I don't care who it is. I don't care when it is. That's just how things work. With that being said, special shout out to Bayside, Talenia, Max Opposer, Reese Martinez, Mr. Pibbs. I'm the 81 Red Boy, Danny Stephan. I wanted to throw some special shout out to a few folks that has shown me some love over the years. I want to thank you guys. But just note, I'm always here for you guys. So if I haven't covered the topic and you are interested in it, make it a point to come into the comment section and say something. You guys that are watching me on Twitter, this is an interactive podcast. You can watch and listen. You can put your cell phone up onto the side and drive your car and listen to me while you're in traffic. But if you're not in traffic and you're interested about this topic, you have every right to say something about that topic because I will acknowledge you as long as you're appropriate. You guys that are watching me on Twitch, same thing applies to you. I know you guys are used to just sitting there staring at the screen and not being responded to by the person that's talking to you, but I respond to you guys. If you guys got something that y'all want to talk to me about, tell me, because it is my goal to bring you factual information about your concerns. Just note, I'm going to focus more on the questions that are directly related to how you can benefit from life. I'm not gonna discredit your comments when you give me something left field, but I'm not gonna really spend much time entertaining what's going on with Pee Wee Herman right now. I'm more focused on how you're going to make money for yourselves. I'm more focused on how you can redirect your efforts from putting 80% of effort into to 20% gain, and switch that to putting 20% of effort into 80% gain, where you have 80% more free time with your life. Whether you're making the same amount of money, or if you're putting 80% effort into getting 360% results, one way or another, I'm trying to maximize your effort to increase your growth. Now, if that's what you want to do with your life, you got to make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel. Whether you like and subscribe right now today, or if you come back and like and subscribe later, you need to make it a point to take time out of your day and outside of your life to swing back around here every day of the week, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about growth stocks. And if you're interested in growth stocks, we need to be talking about that tomorrow. But if you're interested in cash stocks, go back and look at last week's video. If you're interested in a balanced cash stock, go back and look at 2 weeks ago's video. You know, next week, either Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to fix your credit score. I told you guys for the last couple months that eventually I'm going to cover that topic. I've got the information now. I'm going to give you guys the ins and outs on how you can fix your credit score. It is a scenario that most people will pay for. And now you can do it because you came here and you watched it. So I want you guys to really think about what you're doing going forward, because this type of podcast only exists in the restricted area of YouTube, and you're going to have to turn off restricted mode in order to find it. So go to your app, go to your settings for your YouTube app, go down to restricted mode, turn it off, and you will come to find out I got a lot of information there that YouTube is trying to keep the kids from seeing. You guys need to pay attention to that information, because when Donald Trump gets out of office, whether he dies, whether somebody else gets bought in, but typically we do one Democrat and two Republicans. That's typically the trend that we've had over the past 50 years. Uh, well, 47 years. But yeah, it's been about 50 something years. But typically we have one Democrat, two Republicans. So since Trump is a Republican, the next one that should get voted in 4 years should be a Republican. And I strongly believe that Trump has the opportunity to run twice. And we can talk about that as well on a different day. But when he gets out of office, whether it's at the end of this 4 years or after the next 8 years, or if he dies before he finishes his 6 years in, or whatever the case may be, when he's done, so does all of this extra money that you can make. Because when other people get in here, the first thing that somebody opposing Donald Trump is going to do is undo everything that he did, the same way that he undid everything that Joe Biden did. So all of the ways that you can make money for you will upturn as soon as Trump is no longer here to control whatever executive order that does not run 25 years in length. So now is the time to make money for you. Now is the time for you to invest in yourself, to invest in your future, because this is the cheapest the stock market will ever be. Just like Bitcoin, when it was at $20,000 last year, 2 years ago, and last year it went up 150%, and this year is riding that $100,000. Y'all remember when Bitcoin maxed out at 60 grand and went down to 30 and went down to 20, and now it's maxing out at 100 and $150,000? Y'all not gonna be able to buy a whole Bitcoin these days, even if you got 20 grand. And this is the cheapest that the stock market is going to be. This is the cheapest that the stock market is going to be. In the same way that Donald Trump is putting all this effort into stopping the war with Ukraine so that he can get those precious metals, this is the first generation of go buy you some precious metals that are undervalued and over demand, where it will pass the value of gold in time. These are the things that don't nobody think about and not too many people know, but it's all public knowledge. So the best part about this, that, and everything in between, instead of you not knowing what questions to ask, I give you information to give you a place to start asking questions. Better than Wikipedia. I give you the information to know where to go to start asking the right questions. And then you have the ability to start making informed decisions. So once you start making those informed decisions, you start benefiting yourself. And once you start doing things that benefit yourself and start seeing the immediate progress and the immediate outcome, like we just made almost $1,000 in stocks in the last 3 months just by buying and selling, doing a dividend rotation strategy where most people would not be able to make that type of money in the bank, where the bank is giving you 0.064%. We were running 35% return off of 1 month worth of investment, not 35% annually, 35% for 30 days. We're multiply that by 12 times. And this is the stuff that people don't know about and don't think about, where you could utilizing a dividend rotation strategy the way we've been utilizing it, potentially run through 168% return. You could put up 10 grand and come back with 26 grand by the end of the year. You could put up 200 grand and come back with 400, 500 grand by the end of the year and not have to do this anymore. Think about that for a second. Now, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I really appreciate you guys giving me the time and the effort, because today was a long day. It's almost 4-hour podcast. It's one of the longest ones we've had since that 6-hour podcast when Donald Trump became president, which is still on the show. My name is Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And tomorrow night, we're going to start at about 10:35 because we have a regularly scheduled program that is set. It should be about 2 hours long going forward. But today was a really long topic because I had to cover a lot of stuff. So I really appreciate you guys for giving me the time of day. Thank you guys who came in the beginning and rolled the way for the entire 4-hour podcast. And then the rest of you guys that popped in throughout the day and decided to hang out for 20, 30 minutes to see what we had going on. I really appreciate you guys for swinging through. Special shout out to those of you that's watching me on Twitter and Twitch. I got y'all showing y'all love across the stop. And then real quick, before we walk out the door, I want to give a special shout out to Bangladesh and India, because you guys, even though I'm covering India's topic today, I want you guys to know India, I've got more people watching me in Bangladesh, India, Russia, Vietnam than what I got in America right now. This is a worldwide podcast. And you guys got to understand that if y'all not in America, y'all gonna see how we trade in America. And if you are in America, you need to be trading like this in America. And when you finish trading like this in America, go back and pick up a couple of my videos when I told you guys about offshore bank accounts, offshore trust, non-residential trust in countries that have no taxation on it, making yourself a beneficiary where you don't have to pay taxes to the United States government, and other such, investing in other countries and making money that'll make money for you, where you can go and live somewhere else because your money is waiting on you to get there, where all you got to do is buy the plane ticket instead of carrying a bunch of luggage. Life is easier when your wealth is nationwide, when your wealth is international. So real quick, I'm going to tell you one more time. Thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. expression of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.